Chapter 1643.
It's the undead,
Zhuge Mingyang said.
What?
Undead? Li Yun's expression changed.
Willow Tree asked. How can you be so sure?
Because of the Sky Devil flag. The Sky Devil flag devours the undead as food. Previously, those black shadows were all devoured by the Sky Devil flag, which proves that they are the undead. Zhuge Mingyang said. Sky Devil flag?
Feeds on the undead.
The three of them looked at each other. Why did it sound so creepy? Ningmingi said, You mean that the small flag you took out just now can devour the undead?
Yes.
Zhuge Mingyang nodded. Ningmingi said again, Does that mean that the more undead it devours, the stronger the power of the Sky Devil flag will be? Does this have anything to do with you?
Ask this and that.
Zhuge Mingyang raised his eyebrows, looking extremely impatient. The three of them felt a chill in their hearts. Although Zhuge Mingyang did not admit it, he did not deny it either. It seemed that they had to be more vigilant when they were with this person in the future. Wait. Suddenly, Willow Tree raised his eyebrows and looked up at Zhuge Mingyang, with a trace of anger in his eyes. What are you doing? Zhuge Mingyang frowned. Since the Sky Devil flag can devour the undead, why don't you use the Sky Devil flag to suppress those undead? Instead, you want us to kill Li Yun? Willow Tree said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Ningmingi also came to his senses and looked at Zhuge Mingyang unkindly. Li Yun, on the other hand, had a suspicious look on her face. Willow Tree shouted, Say it. Okay, I'll say it. Zhuge Mingyang raised the corner of his mouth and said lightly, I'm doing this because I want to borrow your hands to get rid of Li Yun. Sure enough. Why did you do that? We are now grasshoppers tied to the same rope. Shouldn't we work together? Willow Tree said angrily. Why? The Vanga League has submitted to Qin Feiyong. Although Fengtian Palace didn't submit, it's not that far from it. His forces are growing stronger and stronger. If I have the chance to make him lose his soldiers, why wouldn't I do it? Zhuge Mingyang laughed. Ningmingi said angrily, You really are a despicable person. I have never denied this, but you have to admit that a villain is better than a hypocrite. Zhuge Mingyang said. Humph. Willow Tree snorted and said, You haven't gotten to the point yet. Zhuge Mingyang's pupils shrank as he asked in confusion, What's the main point? If Ningmingi and I had really killed Li Yun before, the others in Fengtian Palace would definitely regard us as mortal enemies. In that case, not only would our cooperation with Fengtian Palace be terminated, but we would also suffer from their crazy revenge. You're simply provoking the flames of war between us. You deserve death. Willow Tree shouted. Haha, Zhuge Mingyang laughed and said, It seems that you are not an idiot after all. No wonder Qin Feiyong thinks so highly of you. Cut the crap. Since you are so heartless, don't blame us for being unrighteous. From now on, don't follow us anymore. Willow Tree said. Yes. Let's go our separate ways. People like you are a disaster if we keep you around. Ningmingi and Li Yun also said, their eyes full of disgust. Are you sure? Zhuge Mingyang smiled playfully. Yes. The three of them nodded. Then tell me, what will you do in the face of the undead? I can tell you responsibly that without my help, you will never reach the end of the desert. Zhuge Mingyang sneered. You don't need to worry about that. You have the Sky Demon flag, and we also have Chong Shui. Your Sky Demon flag may not be as powerful as Chong Shui. If you don't believe me, you can try. Willow Tree grabbed Chong Shui and pointed at Zhuge Mingyang, his eyes flashing coldly. Zhuge Mingyang glanced at Pale Snow and shrugged. He said helplessly, All right, it's my fault this time. I apologize to you all. I promise that I will work together with you all in the future to overcome the difficulties. This? Willow Tree looked at Ningmingi and Li Yun, unable to make up his mind for a moment. Forget it. Just let him stay here. Li Yun sighed. In fact, it's useless even if we drive him away now. Because he has a spatial divine object. He's been following us and we can't do anything to him. Besides, he's right. His Sky Demon flag can devour the undead, which is of great help to us. In fact, it's a relatively good thing to keep him by our side. Because at least we can see him, and if he wants to play any tricks, we can be on guard. But if he hides in a spatial divine object, it's really impossible to guard against him. Ning Mingi transmitted his voice. Willow Tree thought for a moment and felt that it made sense. He looked at Zhuge Mingyang and said, "Okay, I take back what I said before, but you have to swear that you won't plot against us again."
Okay. I swear if I plot against you again, I'll be destroyed by heaven and earth.
Zhuge Mingyang said. He was very calm. "I hope you can keep your oath." Willow Tree took a deep look at him, put away Chang Shui, and said, "You go ahead." "I go ahead? What if you guys plot against me behind my back?" Zhuge Mingyang raised his eyebrows and said. Willow Tree said, "We're not villains like you." Zhuge Mingyang shook his head helplessly, turned into a stream of light, brushed past the three of them, and then rushed into the depths of the desert without looking back. Willow Tree and the other two looked at each other and followed closely. Next, Zhuge Mingyang really became well-behaved. He never did anything to hurt anyone again. And he also worked very hard to stop the storm and suppress the undead. But as the saying goes, once bitten, twice shy. No matter how Zhuge Mingyang behaved, Willow Tree and the other two did not dare to let down their guard. In the blink of an eye, another half a month passed. Everyone had been in the desert for a whole month. In this half a month, the three of them had been attacked by the undead repeatedly. The number of undead was as many as 50 to 60. But without exception, these undead were all swallowed by the sky demon flag. Strange. Li Yun and Ning Mingi had been pondering about a problem along the way. In the past, they had joined hands to enter the desert, and after half a year, they had not encountered a single undead. But now, they had only been in the desert for a month, and they had already been ambushed by the undead. This was too strange. One day, Ning Mingi suddenly thought of something and said, "Could it be that the Guardian is behind this again?" His words woke them up. Willow Tree, Li Yun, and Zhuge Mingyang were suddenly enlightened. This matter definitely had something to do with the Guardian, because only it could control the undead in the desert. In other words, this journey would no longer be peaceful. However, compared to the worries of Willow Tree and the other two, Zhuge Mingyang's performance was a little excited. Traveling in the desert was a very boring and tedious thing. Even if one stayed for a long time, they would unknowingly forget the time. Day by day, month by month. On this day, Zhuge Mingyang suddenly stopped. "What's wrong?" Willow Tree and the other two behind him also immediately stopped and looked at him warily. Although it had been a long time since the last incident, they had never let down their guard against Zhuge Mingyang. Zhuge Mingyang was silent. He took off his shirt and looked down at his chest, frowning. Seeing this, Willow Tree and the other two were curious and ran to Zhuge Mingyang to take a look. Their faces suddenly changed. They saw that there was a skull pattern on Zhuge Mingyang's chest. This skull was black and as big as a baby's fist. It looked very ferocious. Zhuge Mingyang looked up at the three and asked, "Is this the devil imprint?" "Yes." The three nodded. "Interesting." Zhuge Mingyang touched the devil imprint and muttered to himself. Willow Tree said, "Shouldn't you be nervous? But why don't you look nervous at all? What's the use of being nervous?" Zhuge Mingyang grinned and quickly put on his shirt, saying, "Continue." The three looked at each other. This fellow was a little too calm, wasn't he? Wait. Young Master and Zhuge Mingyang entered the Black Tortoise world on the same day. Zhuge Mingyang's devil imprint has appeared. Then wouldn't the young master's devil imprint have also appeared? Willow Tree suddenly said, his face full of worry. "Don't worry about the young master. He made us go deep into the desert, so he must have been mentally prepared. It's just that time passed so quickly. Unknowingly, the young master has been in the Black Tortoise world for half a year." Ning Mingi shook his head. "Yes, carefully counting, we have been in the desert for 5 months. Li Yun nodded and sighed. At the same time, in the castle, hearing the conversation between Willow Tree and the others, Fatso and the others also looked at their chests. Sure enough, on their chests, there was a skull pattern. For a moment, everyone's face was extremely gloomy. The atmosphere in the castle was also particularly solemn. However, after a while, Lu Zhang smiled and said, "Even little cousin is not worried. What are we worried about? Let's continue to cultivate." Little cousin might have already comprehended the profound meaning of becoming a god. We can't be too far behind him. When Fatso and the others heard this, they smiled in relief and continued to cultivate in seclusion. They had been in the Black Tortoise world for half a year. They had also cultivated for half a year. But according to the time in the castle, they had already stayed in the castle for 1,800 days. This was equivalent to 5 years. It could be said that their cultivation time was several times that of Qin Feiyang. At the same time, in Ling Yunfei's castle, the time in the castle was the same as outside. By the river, Ling Yunfei, Luo Qingzhu, the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House, and the Scorpion King were all looking at their respective devil imprints. I hope Boss Qin is really confident in getting rid of this devil imprint. Otherwise, we will have nowhere to cry. The Crocodile Emperor smiled bitterly. Luo Qingzhu looked up at it and comforted. Don't worry, Qin Feiyang usually doesn't do things that he is not confident in. I do believe that, said the Emperor. The Crocodile Emperor nodded. The Scorpion King and the other beasts also nodded. Not far away, on a mountain peak, Qin Feiyang stood with his hands behind his back, facing the wind. He had already sensed and confirmed the devil imprint on his chest. Frankly speaking. Chapter 1644. After all. Now, not only him, but all the people around him and all the beasts had been entangled by the devil mark. Especially the blood-devouring bees. There were countless of them. Although the pseudo-god level beasts in the Black Tortoise realm could remove the devil mark, there were not so many of them. So the only way now was to get the treasure at the end of the desert and control the Black Tortoise realm. But according to the mysterious man, it was not an easy task to get that treasure. Thinking of this, he shook his head violently. How could he be discouraged? Everyone trusted him so much, how could he let them down? Even if he died, even if he was smashed to pieces, he had to get it and give everyone back their freedom. Qin Feiyang clenched his hands tightly. An ray of determination appeared in his eyes. But soon, he weakly let go of his hands with a discouraged look. Not because of the devil mark but because of becoming a god. He had been in this castle for several months, but his heart could not calm down. There was one thing that made him even more depressed. When he was doing other things, he could calm his heart down. Only when comprehending the profound meaning of becoming a god, he could not do it. He had thought more than once, was it really because of the existence of the inner demons? Could he do it if the inner demons disappeared? Alas! The road to becoming a god is difficult. Qin Feiyang sighed and was about to turn and leave. Swish! Suddenly, the inner demons appeared in front of him. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned, looked at the inner demons suspiciously, and asked, "Why did you run out?" "Seeing you like this, I am anxious." The inner demons pursed his lips. "What's the use of being anxious? Unless you disappear," Qin Feiyang said. "That won't do. Even if I want to disappear, I can't do it now, because your obsession is still there." The inner demons grinned. "Obsession?" Qin Feiyang murmured. "Your obsession is your parents. You should know this better than I do. If you don't solve these things, I think it will be really difficult for you to become a god." The inner demons said. "Even if I want to solve it now, I can't do it." Qin Feiyang said helplessly. "Yes. So we have to find another way to become a god." The inner demons said. "Find another way?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "Actually, I haven't been idle in my inner world all these years. I've been comprehending the return, battle, and kill formula." The inner demons said. Qin Feiyang was quite surprised and asked, "Then did you get anything?" Although he had already grasped the return, battle, kill and attainment formula, he did not understand the profound meaning of the 6-word formula. He did not understand, he was imitated. It only had the form but not the spirit. "I do have some insights. I feel that every word of the 6 words godly formula hides a great mystery. Even these 6 words can open up a path to becoming a god." The inner demon said. "You can find a way to become a god?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "Yes. I focused on studying the kill formula." The inner demon said. "Why did you focus on the kill formula?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. The inner demons laughed. "Because I am more bloodthirsty. I have a special liking for the kill formula." Qin Feiyang was speechless. "Did you find anything?" The inner demon said, According to my research, if you use the kill formula to the limit, you can also become a god. What limit? Don't tell me it's killing living beings. Qin Feiyong frowned. Heaven and earth are heartless. They treat all living beings as dogs. Why can't we? The inner demons asked. Qin Feiyong said, even if the kill formula can make us a god, killing living beings is the worst solution. Then tell me, what is the best solution? You and I, if we want to achieve great things, someone has to be sacrificed. Don't be too merciful. In this world, even if you are merciful to others, others might not be merciful to you. Look at Zhuge Mingyang. In order to become a god, how many living beings did he kill? Does he still have a clear conscience? If he can do it, why can't you? To be honest, I was inspired by Zhuge Mingyang. That's why I had this idea. The inner demons coldly snorted. I am different from him. Because I still have a bit of conscience. If you want me to kill living beings for no reason, I really can't do it. Qin Feiyong shook his head. If you want to be a good person, you can stay in the inner world. Anyway, I am the inner demons. In the eyes of the world, there is no evil that I won't do. Let me help you become a god. The inner demons said. Calm down. As you said, the 6-word formula can open a path to godhood. Then why must we choose the kill formula? We can also choose the fight formula. Qin Feiyong said. The inner demons rubbed its forehead, helplessly looked at Qin Feiyong and said, You're always so fussy. All right, take your time. I'll continue to comprehend the kill formula. Qin Feiyong nodded. The inner demons instantly disappeared without a trace. Qin Feiyong sighed, then turned around and flew through the air, landing next to Ling Yunfei's group. He sent his voice to them. The demon mark has appeared, you already know that, right? The 3 people and 6 beasts nodded. Qin Feiyong silently consoled them. Don't worry too much, I'll do my best to return your freedom. Do we look like we're worried? We're not worried at all, because we trust you. Ling Yunfei smiled. Thank you. Qin Feiyong said gratefully, then looked at Li Jian. For the past few months, Li Jian had been looking at the river without moving at all, like a stone statue, not saying a word. No one knew what kind of state he was in now. Qin Feiyong sent his voice transmission because he was afraid of disturbing Li Jian. Whoosh! He took a deep breath, crossed his legs on the ground, and entered a meditative state. Another day passed. All of a sudden, 3 days later in the morning, Li Jian got up and scanned the surroundings, his eyes full of confusion. Ling Yunfei's group, Scorpion King, and the 6 beasts opened their eyes almost at the same time, looking at Li Jian with suspicious faces. Qin Feiyong also opened his eyes. When he saw Li Jian's confused eyes, a glint flashed across his eyes. Li Jian retracted his gaze, looked at Qin Feiyong and the rest, and asked suspiciously, What are you doing here? What do you mean? Ling Yunfei's group, Scorpion King, and the 6 beasts were stunned. Sure enough, Qin Feiyong muttered, waving his hand to Ling Yunfei's group and the 6 beasts, signaling them to keep quiet. Then, he got up, looked at Li Jian and said with a smile, Don't you know what we are doing? I know. Li Jian was stunned, lowered his head and pondered for a moment, looking at Qin Feiyong, the confusion in his eyes thickened, and asked suspiciously, What do I know? What's the situation? Ling Yunfei's group and the 6 beasts looked at each other. Did this guy get amnesia after sitting here for too long? Why are you looking at me like that? Is there something on me? Li Jian looked at the 3 of them and the 6 beasts in confusion. The 3 of them and the 6 beasts did not say a word, and looked at Qin Feiyong, their eyes full of doubts. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed and said with a smile, Then do you know what you are doing here? What am I doing here? I also want to ask you, why am I here? Li Jian glanced around and looked at Qin Feiyong and the others. Ling Yunfei scratched his head and said angrily, What the hell is going on? Why is it connected? Shut up! Qin Feiyong shouted. Ling Yunfei was stunned and said with a frown, What is it? He obviously has amnesia. I have to tell him. This is not amnesia. Qin Feiyong shook his head. It's not amnesia? This time, Ling Yunfei's group and the 6 beasts were even more puzzled. He didn't even remember what he was doing. How could it not be called amnesia? Qin Feiyong thought to himself, From now on,
You are not allowed to mention the word God in front of him.
Why?
Everyone was puzzled.
No means no.
You guys can figure out the meaning yourself.
Actually, you guys are very lucky, because you are about to witness the birth of a fake god with your own eyes.
Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice.
Soon.
The 3 men and the 6 beasts' eyes trembled.
Listening to this, could it be that Li Jian was about to become a god? Wait a minute. Li Jian forgot what he was doing here, but he didn't forget them. In other words, Li Jian only forgot about becoming a god. No self, forget self. Combined with Li Jian's current situation. Could it be? Forgetting that becoming a god is the true meaning. The 3 men and the 6 beasts hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyong.
Don't say anything. I don't know what you guys have comprehended. You just have to do what you want to do in your heart.
Qin Feiyong thought to himself.
Understood.
Ling Yunfei's group and the 6 beasts nodded and then dispersed.
Because they had already comprehended something.
And this kind of thing, everyone's method was the same, so there was no need to stay together. After watching the 3 men and the 6 beasts leave, Li Jian turned to look at Qin Feiyong and asked, "Young master, what is going on? What am I doing here? Can you tell me?"
Qin Feiyong smiled. "The answer is in your heart, you have to find it yourself."
"In my heart?" The more Li Jian listened, the more puzzled he became.
Qin Feiyong said, "Go find the answer in your heart."
"Where to?" Li Jian was puzzled.
Qin Feiyong said with a smile, "You can go wherever you want.
There's no need for any restrictions."
Okay. Li Jian nodded, with a confused look, walked towards the jungle behind.
"What am I doing?
Why do I feel like I have forgotten something?" "The answer is in your heart?" "Young master, why do your words sound so strange?" As he walked, he muttered, and soon disappeared into the jungle. Qin Feiyong lowered his head and pondered for a while, then rushed to the sky above the canyon like lightning. He also warned the blood-devouring bees there, and then went to find Li Jian. After he had found Li Jian, he had been silently following behind Li Jian all this time. Day after day passed. Li Jian was like a headless fly, wandering around aimlessly, almost stepping on the whole land.
Midway, he also went to ask the blood-devouring bees.
But the blood-devouring bees ignored him. Then one day, he stood on the top of a mountain, looking at the sky in confusion. "What have I forgotten?
Who can tell me?"
He roared unwillingly, and his voice spread in all directions, lingering in the air.
But no one answered him.
Qin Feiyong, who was standing behind a big tree at the back, also remained silent.
Chapter 1645.
After an unknown period of time, Li Jian left the mountain peak and returned to the river. He stood by the river, staring at the slowly flowing river, as if he was petrified, not moving at all. Qin Feiyong was like a spectator, neither showing his face nor making a sound.
Day after day passed.
Li Jian slowly calmed down, no longer like a headless fly. The confusion in his eyes gradually dissipated, becoming incomparably clear.
Suddenly one day,
Qin Feiyong noticed that Li Jian's aura seemed to be unknowingly changing. The murderous aura and hostility of the past slowly disappeared, and there was a sense of detachment and transcendence.
In the end,
Li Jian was clearly standing in front of him, but Qin Feiyong felt that he was a little blurry.
He felt that,
in Li Jian's current state, he should have turned himself into a blank piece of paper, forgetting everything.
Another period of time passed.
Qin Feiyong discovered that Li Jian's aura was also slowly transforming.
In other words,
the Emperor's aura was changing in the direction of divine aura. However, Li Jian himself seemed to be unaware of all this, still looking at the river. But whether it was his expression or his eyes, they became calm, and the ethereal aura emitted from his body became stronger and stronger. It felt as if he himself was not involved.
As days passed,
the divine aura on his body became more and more obvious.
Qin Feiyong was also quite excited.
Firstly, Li Jian's success had already proved that the truth he had comprehended was correct. Secondly, to be able to witness the whole process of Li Jian becoming a god with his own eyes was also a kind of opportunity for him.
A few days later,
Li Jian's aura had transformed to a critical point.
In other words,
just a little bit more and it would completely become divine aura. But regarding all this, he still looked as if he didn't know anything.
However,
Ling Yunfei and the others were alarmed by this divine aura and rushed over. Over the years, I've seen a lot of false gods, but this is the first time I've seen someone become a god with my own eyes.
Ling Yunfei said excitedly.
Yeah. I also didn't expect that Li Jian would be the first to step into the false god realm.
Luo Qingzhu sighed. You can't judge a book by its cover.
Or perhaps, comprehending godhood has little to do with one's talent.
It should be related to life experiences.
After all, Li Jian is much older than us. To use a common saying, he has crossed more bridges than we have roads. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house smiled.
Woo-woo.
All of a sudden, a strong wind blew around Li Jian. His clothes and long hair rustled. A powerful divine aura erupted like a volcano, enveloping the entire area. Qin Feiyang and the other three, as well as the Scorpion King and the other 6 beasts, all held their breaths, fearing that they would disturb Li Jian. However, suddenly, the wind stopped, and the divine might dissipated.
Li Jian finally reacted.
He retracted his gaze and looked at himself. He murmured, I finally remember that I'm comprehending the profound meaning of becoming a god. But why is it like this? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. Was this a success or a failure? Why? Didn't I already comprehend the true essence of becoming a god? Why did I still fail? What is the true meaning of becoming a god? Suddenly, Li Jian raised his head and roared, his face full of unwillingness. Failed. The eyes of Qin Feiyang and the others trembled. He actually failed. Ling Yunfei frowned. Boss Qin, according to Li Jian's situation, the true meaning that you guys have comprehended doesn't seem to be the true meaning?
No.
Forget, it must be the true meaning. Otherwise, his aura wouldn't have transformed.
Qin Feiyang said.
Ling Yunfei said, then why did he fail? Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said, I think there should be something missing? The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house asked, You mean, other than forgetting, there is something else?
Yes.
Qin Feiyang nodded, lowered his head and muttered to himself. What was missing? Ling Yunfei and the others went forward to comfort Li Jian. Although they didn't succeed, at least it proved that they were on the right path. After a long time, Li Jian finally calmed down. Then, everyone looked at Qin Feiyang, hoping that Qin Feiyang could answer the questions in their hearts. But they had never thought that Qin Feiyang himself had yet to become a god. Just like now. Qin Feiyang was also confused, his mind in a mess. Only by not forgetting your original intention and not forgetting your heart can you prove your Tao. Turn yourself into a blank piece of paper, forget to become a god, forget everything. A newborn baby. Qin Feiyang pondered over it, but the more he thought about it, the more confused he became. After a while, Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at Ling Yunfei and the others, saying, Let me calm down alone.
All right.
The 4 of them and the 6 beasts nodded and turned to leave. After leaving Qin Feiyang, Li Jian looked at everyone and said, We shouldn't rely on the young master, we should think about it ourselves.
Everyone nodded.
The first step is to forget all your troubles and calm yourself down. Qin Feiyang murmured. He didn't believe that with his temperament, he couldn't even do this most basic thing. Next, he lived an ordinary life every day. He didn't use his cultivation, no matter where he went, he walked step by step. He didn't think about anything else. In short, he was just like an ordinary person. Day after day. After an unknown amount of time, he slowly got used to this kind of life. After getting used to this kind of life, he felt that his mentality gradually changed. There was less anxiety and desire, and more innocence and tranquility. Finally, one day, under his unremitting efforts, his heart calmed down. He put everything aside. He still lived like an ordinary person. Suddenly one day, he had an epiphany. The other half of the opportunity to become a god was hidden in the lives of ordinary people. But what was it? How should ordinary people live? He pondered over it one by one. He had lived in Iron Ox Town for several years, so he had some understanding of the lives of ordinary people. He excluded everything. In the end, the goal pointed to a common point. Home. That's right, home. Whether it was humans or beasts, they all had parents. With parents there was a home. Even if some people's home was incomplete, it was still a home. Even if he was an orphan, he used to have a home. Home was the foundation of all living things in the world. Of course. Apart from family, there were other similarities as well. The most typical was survival. Every living thing needed to survive, whether it was a mortal or a cultivator. But the way to survive had to go through scheming. The so-called desire came from survival. So this common point of survival and not forgetting one's original intention were completely inconsistent. Therefore, the other half of the opportunity to become a god was home. Home represented the root, home, hope, warmth, and innocence. Thinking of this point, Qin Feiyang found a place and built a home that belonged to him. He didn't use any means. Like battle aura, like divine weapons. Every brick, every tile, every blade of grass and every tree had been painstakingly built by his own hands. It took him 2 months to build a small courtyard of dozens of meters. He was covered in sweat all day. But he didn't feel tired at all. In the end, he stood outside the courtyard and looked at everything simple and plain. He was full of smiles. He was very gratified and satisfied. This was his home. Although he didn't have a family, when he walked into the courtyard, he had an inexplicable sense of belonging. A sense of belonging was the true meaning of a home. Next, he lived in the courtyard and completely lived the life of an ordinary person. He had even traveled thousands of miles to find some wild vegetables and create a vegetable garden. In short, every day, he worked at sunrise and rested at sunset. He had 3 meals a day. Although it was hard and boring, he enjoyed this kind of life. And after having a home, he found that it was easier for his heart to calm down. This was a sense of belonging. With a sense of belonging in his heart could also calm down. Gradually, he forgot all his troubles, as if he had returned to his childhood. He was carefree and had no desires. He entered a state of returning to simplicity. Not long after, he even forgot about becoming a god. But he wasn't like Li Jian, wandering around like a headless fly. He was the same as usual, eating when he should eat, resting when he should rest, and doing what he should do. In this carefree state, finally one day his aura began to transform. Ling Yunfei noticed this immediately and immediately brought Li Jian and the others, as well as the crocodile emperor and the other beasts, to check it out. When they saw the courtyard, they couldn't help but be stunned. During this period of time, because they didn't want to disturb Qin Feiyang, they didn't go to Qin Feiyang. This was the first time they saw this courtyard. However, they didn't go close to the courtyard and watched from afar. When they saw Qin Feiyang in the courtyard, a trace of surprise crept onto their faces. The crocodile emperor said, "Didn't you say that Boss Qin's obsession is too deep and can't become a god?" Ling Yunfei said, "Maybe he has really forgotten, but this is too unbelievable. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to let go of this for the rest of my life." Luo Qingzhu and the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house were also in disbelief. Because they were very clear about Qin Feiyang's experience. Scorpion Emperor said, "Look, what is he doing?" They saw Qin Feiyang squatting alone in the vegetable garden, burying his head, plowing the soil and weeding the grass. Ling Yunfei's face twitched and said, "It seems like he's planting vegetables." "You can become a god by planting vegetables? What kind of joke is this?" The crocodile emperor said. Li Jian said, "You don't understand. Forget everything and return to the basics. This is a way of life. Everyone's method is the same, and this is the young master's method." Day after day passed. As Qin Feiyang's aura continued to transform, strands of divine might spread out from his body. Ling Yunfei's gaze trembled and said, "This is really a sign of becoming a god. Will he succeed?" "I don't know. However, he seems to have forgotten one thing," the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. "What is it?" Everyone looked at him suspiciously. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said, "He hasn't opened the door to the potential of the War King. As long as I can become a god, this is a small matter." Ling Yunfei said casually. Everyone nodded. After becoming a god and reaching a certain level, one could continue to open the door to potential. Therefore, in comparison, becoming a god was more important now. Another few days passed. Qin Feiyang's divine might finally reached a critical point, and a gust of wind swept in all directions. Ling Yunfei and the others couldn't help but feel nervous. Because they were afraid that Qin Feiyang would fail at the critical moment like Li Jian. Chapter 1646. At the same time. Qin Feiyong stood up and patted the dirt off his hands. He then put his hands behind his back and looked at the clear sky. Slowly, his mind went blank. Everything, including the courtyard and the vegetable garden, disappeared from his memory. This was the real ethereal realm. The aura emitted from his body became more and more terrifying. The surrounding mountains and void were trembling. Kill him for me. But suddenly, in the depths of Qin Feiyong's heart, a voice filled with murderous intent suddenly rang out. As soon as the voice appeared, a scene suddenly appeared in Qin Feiyong's blank mind. In the scene, a 10-year-old boy was lying on the ground in despair, his small body trembling. The boy looked at the sky, his eyes filled with disbelief. High up in the sky, a middle-aged man with his hands behind his back, wearing a dragon robe and a golden crown on his head, exuding the aura of an emperor. The middle-aged man looked down at the young master with indifferent eyes. "Father, what did I do wrong? Why did you suddenly kill the child?" The young master roared helplessly. But the middle-aged man turned a deaf ear. Next to the boy, there was a woman wearing a phoenix robe. She was also begging the middle-aged man to let the boy live. The middle-aged man still looked indifferent. He looked at the guards beside him and shouted, "Give him the spiritual disaster pill and expel him from the capital." "Why? Imperial Father, why is this? Why are you doing this to me?" the boy roared hysterically. "Why?" At the same time, Qin Feiyong, who was standing in the vegetable garden, suddenly roared. A monstrous aura rushed out of his body. This sudden scene shocked Ling Yunfei and the others in the distance. "What is Boss Qin doing?" Emperor Crocodile was surprised. "Not good," Ling Yunfei said. Before his voice died away, Qin Feiyong's aura quickly dissipated. The wind also stopped abruptly. Everything gradually returned to calm. As expected. His obsession is too deep. Although he has slowly forgotten everything during this period, that memory is still there. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion sighed. In the courtyard, Qin Feiyong's hair fluttered in anger. His eyes were bloodshot. He still hadn't recovered and was still immersed in that painful memory. At this moment, the endless anger and viciousness in his heart were madly attacking his reason. "I refuse to accept this. I can't accept this. I want to kill everyone who betrayed me," he roared and bellowed. Just as he was about to lose his mind, a white-haired old man suddenly appeared in his mind. The old man's face was kind. His eyes were kind, and there was a smile on his face. "Uncle Yuan." Qin Feiyong's body suddenly trembled. He quivered and came back to his senses. "Feiyong, wake up." At the same time, an anxious voice sounded in his ears. Qin Feiyong turned around and saw Ling Yunfei and the other three, as well as the Crocodile Emperor and the other 6 beasts. His eyes were filled with worry. He suppressed his negative emotions and let out a long sigh. It seemed that he was still unable to cross the hurdle in his heart. If that pass did not appear, he should have stepped into the false god realm by now. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "I'm fine." Hearing this, Ling Yunfei and the others were stunned. When they saw the smile on Qin Feiyong's face, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. Ling Yunfei rolled his eyes and said, "We thought you had already gone mad." "Almost," Qin Feiyong said. Luo Qingzhu asked, "Is it because of that past when you were 10 years old?" "Yes. Although it's just a memory, I feel like I've experienced it again. That despair and pain are too real." Qin Feiyong nodded. Ling Yunfei patted him on the shoulder and asked, "Then what are you going to do now?" "I don't know." Qin Feiyong shook his head, pondered for a moment, and said, "Maybe the inner demons are right." "What did the inner demons say?" Everyone was suspicious. "Prove one's Tao by killing." Qin Feiyong said word by word. Heard it. Everyone's eyelids twitched. But they did not know how to persuade him. Qin Feiyong looked at Ling Yunfei and said, "I've completely comprehended the profound meaning of becoming a true god. There's no need to stay here any longer. Send me out." "Okay." Ling Yunfei nodded. Li Jian hurriedly asked, "Young master, what is the true meaning of becoming a true god?" "Far away on the horizon, close at hand," Qin Feiyong said with a smile and asked Ling Yunfei to send him to the castle. Far away on the horizon? Close at hand. After Qin Feiyong left, Ling Yunfei and the other 3,
as well as the Scorpion King and the other 6 beasts, looked around, their eyes full of confusion. Other than the courtyard and the mountain, there was nothing else. Suddenly, Li Jian seemed to have thought of something and his eyes trembled slightly. He quickly scanned everything in the courtyard, and a trace of understanding appeared in his eyes. So that's how it is, he murmured and ignored Ling Yunfei and the others. He turned and left alone. In the castle. Seeing Qin Feiyong appear, the white-eyed wolf said suspiciously, "Little Qin Zi, why hasn't your cultivation changed at all?" "Although my cultivation hasn't changed, I've gained a lot." Qin Feiyong smiled and asked, "How long has it been?" Lu Hong said, "It's been half a year since the devil mark appeared." "What? Half a year?" Qin Feiyong stared blankly and asked, "For the past half a year, did you count the time outside or inside the castle?" "Outside, of course," Lu Hong said with a smile. "Isn't this too fast?" "If that's the case, Willow Tree and the others have been in the desert for almost a year, right?" Qin Feiyong said. "Yes." Lu Hong nodded. Qin Feiyong glanced at everyone and said with a smile, "Then your cultivation should have improved a lot." "Of course." Lu Zhang smiled and released his aura. He was a 9-star combat emperor, and he was about to break through to the peak. The white-eyed wolf had also reached the 9-star combat emperor level. In short, the weakest cultivation now was a 7-star combat emperor. "Okay, let's work harder. I've completely comprehended the profound meaning of becoming a god. When you break through to the peak, you can directly break through to the false god realm." Qin Feiyong said with a smile. "Comprehended? Since you've comprehended it, why haven't you become a god?" Everyone was suspicious. "Just one step away." Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. "One step away?" Everyone looked at each other and immediately understood. It must be because of Qin Feiyong's inner demons. Dan Wangkai suddenly looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "By the way, you haven't unlocked the 8th level of the potential imprint." Qin Feiyong was stunned and smiled bitterly. "I really haven't." Dan Wangkai took out a great creation pill and gave it to Qin Feiyong. "This is the great creation pill that I just refined a few days ago. It has 6 patterns. Try it." Qin Feiyong nodded. He glanced at Yu Huang at the side. "I'll have to trouble you then." After spending so much time with everyone, it also knew the way to open the door of potential. Hearing Qin Feiyong's words, it immediately released its divine power. Qin Feiyong also immediately took the great creation pill. Even though his cultivation had reached the peak martial monarch realm, he was still a 9-star battle monarch, thus he was still able to activate it. This time, his luck was very good. He succeeded on his first try. It was just that the pain was really unbearable. Next, he sent a sound transmission to Willow Tree. Shwa! Very soon. Willow Tree appeared in the castle and asked, "Young master, did you succeed?" "No." Qin Feiyong shook his head and briefly explained the situation. Sigh. Willow Tree sighed deeply and said, "Don't be discouraged. Even Zhuge Mingyang was able to open up a different path to becoming a god. I believe you can do it too." Qin Feiyong nodded. Following that, Willow Tree brought Qin Feiyong and Yu Huang out of the castle. After appearing outside, Willow Tree immediately returned Chang Shui and the castle to Qin Feiyong. "Still the peak? It seems that this period of closed-door cultivation has been in vain." Once he saw through Qin Feiyong's current cultivation, Zhuge Mingyang sneered. "Shut up, what do you know?" Willow Tree said angrily. "There's no need to talk nonsense with him." Qin Feiyong waved his hand, glanced at Zhuge Mingyang indifferently, and looked at the desert in front of him. Woo-woo! Storms of hundreds of feet and tens of thousands of feet roared wantonly in the desert. The stuffy air made one unable to help but feel irritated. In short, the environment here was many times worse than the outer part of the desert. Moreover, even he felt a sense of fatal danger from the howling storm. Zhuge Mingyang said indifferently, "The storm here is enough to kill you in seconds. You'd better go hide in the castle." Yu Huang raised his eyebrows and said, "You talk too much nonsense." Qin Feiyong suddenly noticed that Zhuge Mingyang was holding a small black flag in his hand, and said, "What is that?" "That's the Sky Devil flag. According to Zhuge Mingyang, it devours the undead as food." Along the way,
the Sky Devil flag has indeed devoured a lot of undead. Willow Tree secretly said. There are really undead? Qin Feiyang was shocked. That's right. Last time, Li Yun was controlled by the undead and almost killed. And according to our guess, the undead here should be controlled by the Guardian. Willow Tree said. Has the Guardian ever appeared? Qin Feiyang asked. No. Willow Tree shook his head. Sky Devil flag. Qin Feiyang glanced at the small flag again, and a cold light flashed in the depths of his eyes. Devouring the undead as food meant that this Sky Devil flag was also a monster. Moreover, it should be a monster with a weapon spirit. How many more tricks does this person have? Woo-woo. Suddenly, a tornado more than 10,000 feet high, carrying yellow sand all over the sky, rushed towards Qin Feiyang and the others. Willow Tree's face changed, and he quickly rolled up Qin Feiyang and dodged. Those numerous wind blades actually left behind numerous ghastly wounds on Qin Feiyang's body. Blood was flowing out from them. Even Willow Tree, Ning Mingyi, Li Yun, Zhuge Mingyang, and Yu Huang also had many wounds on their bodies. Damn, the power of this storm is a bit too strong. Yu Huang said in shock. It had also been in the castle, so it didn't know how many dangers Willow Tree and the others had experienced along the way. It's indeed a bit scary. However, it can't threaten me for the time being. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, and decisively opened his armor. Yu Huang also opened his armor. This armor was snatched from the hands of the great deacon last time. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, Let's go. The group of people cut through the sky and continued to rush towards the depths. Willow Tree and the others had been in the desert for almost a year, and they had been rushing, but they still hadn't reached the end of the desert. Chapter 1647. Not long after, Qin Feiyang saw the undead. Dozens of undead jumped out of the storm and rushed towards Qin Feiyang. Looking at this scene, Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, Do you think I'm easy to bully? That's right. They just think you're easy to bully. Who told you to be the weakest? Zhuge Mingyang laughed and waved the Sky Devil flag. The black fog swept through the sky and swallowed the dozens of black shadows. Qin Feiyang looked at the Sky Devil flag and his eyes flashed. Zhuge Mingyang said, I helped you solve the crisis, shouldn't you thank me? Willow Tree coldly snorted. Without you, we can still suppress it. I'm sure. But, is it as convenient as my Sky Devil flag? I don't even need to revive. Zhuge Mingyang said proudly. Willow Tree was furious. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice, What are you competing with him for? Concentrate on dealing with the storm. Yes. Willow Tree quickly nodded. At this point, not only did the power of the storm become stronger, it also became very dense. Almost every 10 breaths, a storm would blow over. But after activating the armor, Qin Feiyang was able to handle it with ease. Although he would sometimes be injured, at least it would not endanger his life. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. In these 2 days, thousands of undead had appeared. Without exception, they were all swallowed by Zhuge Mingyang's Sky Devil flag. Wait. In the morning, Li Yun suddenly stopped, glanced at the yellow sand on the left, and said in surprise, Look, is there a hall over there? Hall? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned, and a flash of light flashed past his eyes as he quickly looked up. Willow Tree and the others also turned their heads to look. In the void, yellow sand flew all over the sky, blocking their line of sight. But Willow Tree and the others, like Li Yun, all caught the outline of a hall. However, Qin Feiyang did not see it. Because his cultivation was not as high as Willow Tree and the others, he could not see as far as Willow Tree and the others. Qin Feiyang urged, Let's go and take a look. If it really was a large hall, then it was very likely that they had already reached the end. Seeing that Qin Feiyang was in such a hurry, Willow Tree immediately flew over with him. As they got closer, Qin Feiyang finally saw the outline of a large hall. Furthermore, it was extremely huge. According to his initial estimation, it occupied an area of at least a few hundred kilometers and towered into the clouds. It was like a primeval demonic beast lying there, emitting a mysterious aura. It really is a palace, but isn't it a little too big? Zhuge Mingyang's face was full of shock. Indeed. In my entire life, this is the first time I've seen such a tall hall. Li Yun nodded. With their eyesight, they could now clearly see the hall. The hall was completely black, like a huge mountain, towering into the sky. That shocking majestic aura rushed towards them, and even they, the false gods, could not help but feel a sense of insignificance. And on one side of the front of the hall, there was a huge stone tablet. The stone tablet was also completely black, and there were 6 big words engraved on it. Forbidden area. Trespassers die. These 6 words, as if they were cast in blood, emitted a shocking murderous aura. Even Qin Feiyong could not bear this murderous aura. A deep fear surged uncontrollably from the depths of his heart. He felt that those 6 words were like 6 death gods. Qin Feiyong and the others stopped half a mile in front of the hall and looked at the hall from afar, their eyes full of vigilance. Why is there a hall here? And it's in the deepest part of the desert. This is too strange. Could there be some demon sealed inside? Li Yun and Ning Mingi whispered. Zhuge Mingyang asked, "You've been in the Black Tortoise world for so many years. Have you not heard of this hall?" "No. It can be said that no one has ever been here since ancient times. The reason we can come here this time is entirely because we ate the divine meat of the giant python. Our bodies have been strengthened, and we can barely withstand the storm here." Li Yun and the others said. Zhuge Mingyang nodded and turned to look at Qin Feiyong. He found that Qin Feiyong's eyes had a trace of desire and excitement. What's going on? Could this hall be Qin Feiyong's purpose of entering the desert? Zhuge Mingyang was suspicious. His eyes flashed slightly and he said in a deep voice, "This hall is too strange. It's best that we don't provoke it, go around it, and continue to go deeper." "No." Qin Feiyong waved his hand. As expected. Zhuge Mingyang sneered and said, "Brother Qin, what do you want to do?" Qin Feiyong took a deep breath and said, "Enter this hall." "Enter? Don't joke. Didn't you see what's written on the stone tablet? Forbidden area, trespassers die. You don't want to live, but we do," Zhuge Mingyang said. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and said, "Don't you just want to know what's in this hall? Why do you have to be so sarcastic?" "What do you mean?" "Brother Qin, have you always known about the existence of this hall?" Li Yun said in surprise. "Isn't it obvious?" "He asked us to enter the desert for this hall." Zhuge Mingyang sneered. Li Yun was stunned. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Then what's in this hall? Why do you have to come all the way here?" Qin Feiyong did not answer. "Brother Qin, we're in the same boat now. You can't plot against us behind our backs," Zhuge Mingyang said. Willow Tree said angrily, "Are you trying to sow discord again?" "Am I trying to sow discord? You're too funny. We've come all the way here. At least let us know the purpose of coming here." "Li Yun, Ning Mingi, don't you think so?" Zhuge Mingyang said. Ning Mingi looked at Qin Feiyong, whose face was a little gloomy, and said indifferently, "I don't care. I'll do whatever the young master says." Zhuge Mingyang was stunned. "Actually, it doesn't matter whether you know or not. Because I believe in Brother Qin's character. He definitely won't harm us." Li Yun also said. Zhuge Mingyang's face became extremely ugly. He did want to sow discord, but he didn't expect that Li Yun and Ning Mingi wouldn't fall for it. This made his current situation a little awkward. Qin Feiyong glanced at Zhuge Mingyang with sarcasm, then looked up at the main hall and waved his hand. "Let's go." Without any hesitation, Willow Tree immediately took Qin Feiyong and flew toward the main hall. Yu Huang also stayed by Qin Feiyong's side, staring warily at the surroundings. Li Yun and Ning Mingi looked at each other and quickly followed. Only Zhuge Mingyang stayed where he was, hesitating. After dodging a few storms, Qin Feiyong and the others came to the main hall in an instant. The strange thing was, there was no storm within 100 feet in front of the main hall. It was as if there was an invisible barrier in the void that isolated the storm. Chapter 1648. When Li Yun heard this, she pointed to the door of the main hall and said, "Then you go and push the door." "Me?" Ning Mingi's expression froze. He looked at the stone door of the main hall with fear in his eyes. Just the door of the main hall was more than 100 feet high. Li Yun teased. "Didn't you say that these words are just to scare us? Then what are you afraid of?"
I'm just guessing.
Ning Mingyi smiled embarrassedly. Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled.
You guys stay here. I'll go.
Young master, no.
Willow Tree hurriedly said. What's wrong?
Qin Feiyong was puzzled.
You haven't broken through to the pseudo-god realm yet. What if something happens?
Let me go.
With my strength, even if something happens, I should be able to escape unscathed. Willow Tree said.
Qin Feiyong thought for a moment and said, Let me go. At the critical moment, I can enter the castle, and your divine item may not be able to deal with those accidents.
What he meant was, Willow Tree's divine item was not on the same level as the castle.
If they really encountered danger, the castle would definitely be able to withstand it, but Willow Tree's divine item may not be able to.
Willow Tree frowned and wanted to say something.
Enough.
Listen to me. You won't go wrong. Qin Feiyong smiled and walked toward the door step by step. Whoosh. Zhuge Mingyang also came to Willow Tree and the others at this time, staring at Qin Feiyong. Soon, Qin Feiyong walked to the steps in front of the door. There were a total of 9 steps, and the stone tablet was beside them. Qin Feiyong tried to step on the first step. After waiting for a while, there was no sound. He also breathed a sigh of relief and stepped on the second step. But suddenly,
his body stiffened as if he had discovered something. He glanced behind the stone tablet and his face suddenly turned pale.
What's going on? Willow Tree and the others were surprised and looked at the stone tablet.
But because they were facing the stone tablet, they could not see the situation behind the stone tablet.
All of you retreat.
Qin Feiyong suddenly shouted, his face full of anxiety, and retreated toward Willow Tree and the others like lightning.
What on earth did you see? Why are you so flustered?
Willow Tree and the others were puzzled, but they did not dare to delay and quickly retreated.
At the same time. You? Keimu? You? Feigo?
Jin following. A terrifying dragon's might, like a volcanic eruption, surged out from behind the stone tablet and rushed towards Qin Feiyong and the others.
Everyone's eyes trembled.
Lu Mu cried out in alarm, his face pale.
It's the fire dragon. Willow Tree roared. Fire dragon.
Li Yun, Ning Mingyi, Yu Huang, and even Zhuge Mingyang changed their expressions.
That's right. It's me.
A sinister laugh sounded from behind the stone tablet. The waterfall of the dragon's power was extremely terrifying, and rushed toward Qin Feiyong and the others. The group of people was immediately imprisoned, unable to move.
Then,
a 10-meter-long fire dragon flew out from behind the stone tablet and entered everyone's line of sight.
He actually didn't die, Yu Huang said in surprise.
Although the fire dragon's figure was much smaller than last time, it had seen the fire dragon with its own eyes, so it could recognize it at a glance. Hearing Yu Huang's words, the fire dragon's body suddenly emitted an astonishing amount of hostility, and said, Last time, it was because of my carelessness that I fell into the hands of Qin Feiyong. This time, it's you who are going to die, especially you, Qin Feiyong. Today, I swear I won't stop until I swallow you alive. The fire dragon stared at Qin Feiyong, its huge eyes full of resentment.
Is that so?
I'm afraid you don't have the ability. If you have the ability, release the pressure and fight me one-on-one.
Qin Feiyong sneered.
One-on-one? The fire dragon was stunned, and then it raised its head and laughed, its laughter full of ridicule.
You don't dare?
Qin Feiyong provoked.
Do you think I will give you a chance to revive Chang Shui?
The fire dragon smiled contemptuously, and a divine power swept out, carrying a destructive aura, and blasted towards Qin Feiyong.
Humph!
You think I don't exist?
Suddenly, a cold snort sounded.
Zhuge Mingyang, who was behind, suddenly rushed out a terrifying divine power, and broke the fire dragon's majesty. Qin Feiyong's body became light, and he turned his head to stare at Zhuge Mingyang in surprise.
One must know.
This fire dragon was a true god of war. Back then, it even forced his ancestor to enter the 3rd floor of the miracle.
One could only imagine how powerful it was.
And Zhuge Mingyang was only a false god, and he hadn't opened all the doors of potential, so how could he break the fire dragon's pressure?
The fire dragon also looked at Zhuge Mingyang in surprise. Whoosh!
After Qin Feiyong came back to his senses, he immediately rushed towards Willow Tree and the others.
The most important thing now was not to think about Zhuge Mingyang's matter. He had to meet up with Willow Tree and the others first. Because only by standing together could they advance and retreat together. Boom. However, there was a trace of ridicule in the fire dragon's eyes, and the pressure emerged again, rushing towards the group of people. Zhuge Mingyang said, "Go to the castle quickly. As for Willow Tree and the others, I will take them to my space divine item, and then we will communicate and discuss countermeasures." Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. Zhuge Mingyang's words were not credible at all. But now he had no choice. In the blink of an eye, the pressure had already rushed over. Qin Feiyong had no time to hesitate, and immediately went into the castle, and then waved his hand, and the situation outside appeared. Immediately, a scene that almost drove him crazy appeared in front of his eyes. Zhuge Mingyang did not take Willow Tree and the others into the space divine item. In other words, Zhuge Mingyang left Willow Tree, Yu Huang, Ning Mingyi, and Li Yun outside. Zhuge Mingyang, you bastard! The 3 people and 1 beast were also furious. Lu Mu didn't hesitate. He hurriedly brought Li Yun and the other 2 as well as Yu Huang into his spatial divine item. Humph! The fire dragon snorted coldly. The terrifying pressure firmly imprisoned the space divine item. At the same time, its body, which was more than 10 meters long, expanded in the wind. In the blink of an eye, its body became more than 10,000 feet long, like a majestic mountain, suspended in the void, and its power rolled in all directions. The storm that was enough to kill a fake god did not even leave a trace on its body. You dare to hide in the space divine item in front of me? The fire dragon's eyes were full of contempt, and it raised its huge tail and slammed it. Clang! The Willow Tree's space divine item was shattered on the spot. The 3 people and 1 beast fell in the void in a sorry state, their bodies dripping with blood. Although the fire dragon's huge tail hit the space divine item, because the fire dragon's strength was too strong, even they suffered devastating injuries. Boom! The fire dragon's pressure rushed over. Once again, the 3 people and the beast were imprisoned. What should we do? At this moment, facing the war god level fire dragon, they really felt the aura of death. Their eyes were full of fear. Just a few ants. How dare you follow Qin Feiyong around all day? You really don't know life from death. I will send you to hell now. The fire dragon said contemptuously. Its huge tail was raised high, and with a deafening sound of wind and thunder, it slammed towards the 3 people and 1 beast. The Willow Tree trio, Yu Huang, the 6 elders, and Zhuge Mingyang, who was hiding in the space divine item, were all stunned. Did he hear it wrong? Qin Feiyong actually challenged the fire dragon? You have to know. The fire dragon was a true god of war. And Qin Feiyong was only at the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm. The difference between the 2 could be described as 108,000 miles. This was simply courting death. Qin Feiyong looked at the fire dragon and said, "You didn't hear it wrong. Let's have a one-on-one battle. If I lose, I'll give my life to you." "Are you sure?" the fire dragon asked. "Of course. But for the sake of fairness, you have to suppress your cultivation to the same realm as mine, and you can't use your pressure to imprison me," Qin Feiyong said. "Suppress cultivation? No pressure?" The fire dragon raised his eyebrows. "What's wrong? Don't tell me you don't dare. Don't forget, you are the god of war. Even if you suppress your cultivation to the same realm as mine, even if you don't use your pressure, you still have the absolute advantage. After all, no matter how you suppress it, your divine power and divine body are still there. I'm afraid that just relying on divine power alone is enough to kill me," Qin Feiyong said. "Haha," the fire dragon laughed out loud, his eyes filled with killing intent, and said, "All right, I'll satisfy you, but you have to promise that you won't play any tricks." "I've always been a man of my word," Qin Feiyong said. "Cut the crap. I've always believed that the words of humans can't be trusted. What if you join forces to revive Chang Shui after I return these people to you? Wouldn't I lose more than I gain? I want you to swear in the name of your ancestor, Qin Batian," the fire dragon said. "It seems that you know me quite well. You know that my ancestor is very important to me," Qin Feiyong mocked. The fire dragon said impatiently, "Cut the crap, hurry up." "Okay.
I swear in the name of my ancestor that I'll fight you fairly and won't let a third party interfere. If I violate this oath, I'll be destroyed by the heavens and never reincarnated.
Qin Feiyong shouted.
The fire dragon said, also you can't use Xueqi or the castle.
Young master, please reconsider.
The willow tree exclaimed. Without the qi and blood pearl, even if he used Xueqi and the castle, Qin Feiyong wouldn't be a match for the fire dragon, let alone without Xueqi and the castle. Qin Feiyong glanced at the willow tree, then looked at the fire dragon and said, I swear, I won't use Xueqi or the castle.
Awesome.
Even I can't help but like you. The fire dragon laughed and withdrew his pressure.
The 3 people and 1 beast immediately rushed to Qin Feiyong's side.
The willow tree said, Young master, quickly give us Xueqi.
We'll kill it.
But Qin Feiyong was indifferent. Li Yun said in surprise, Brother Qin, you're not really going to fight it one-on-one, are you? With your current strength, you're no match for it.
Yeah. Isn't it just an oath? What's the big deal?
Ning Mingi also said. The name of our ancestors is not to be blasphemed. I swear in the name of our ancestors.
I will abide by it.
Qin Feiyong said. Young master. The willow tree was extremely anxious. That's enough.
Don't say anything.
Qin Feiyong waved his hand. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and turned to look at the willow tree, saying, I remember that the other people from the Vanga League seemed to be in your space artifact.
But why didn't I see them when your space artifact shattered?
The willow tree said, My space artifact is too small. It can't even accommodate dozens of people, so not long after we went deep into the desert, I transferred them to Li Yun's space artifact.
So that's how it is. Qin Feiyong suddenly understood.
He looked at Ning Mingi and Li Yun and said with a smile, It seems that you two have gotten along very well in the past year. Otherwise, Ning Mingi would definitely not be at ease to let the people from the Vanga League stay in Li Yun's space artifact.
Today is different from the past.
Now that we are standing on the same boat and going through life and death together, we naturally can't be calculative about past grievances.
Ning Mingi said with a smile.
Yes. After going through so many things, we can be considered to have seen through it.
Life is short.
Why should we make a fuss over such a small matter as if we are enemies who killed our fathers?
Li Yun also said.
Qin Feiyong looked at the two of them and said with a smile, I'm really gratified that you can think like this. Li Yun was stunned and said teasingly, It's not appropriate to use the word gratified on us. After all, no matter what, we are still considered elders, and gratified is usually used by the elders to the juniors.
Qin Feiyong was stunned.
He shook his head and said with a smile, It does seem to be a little inappropriate. Seeing that Qin Feiyong and the others were chatting as if there was no one else around, the fire dragon could not help but be furious.
He said angrily, Are you guys done chatting? Do you think I don't exist?
Willow Tree and the others immediately looked at the fire dragon, their eyes flashing coldly.
What are you glaring at?
If it weren't for Qin Feiyong, you would have been corpses by now.
No, not even corpses would be left.
The fire dragon's eyes were full of contempt.
They were even more annoyed.
Qin Feiyong waved his hand and said, Leave. Willow Tree said, Young master, think about it again.
Don't be stupid.
My ancestor's reputation can't be tarnished because of me.
Willow Tree, Xueqi is for you.
Be careful of the guardian. But remember, no matter how the battle between me and the fire dragon is, you can't interfere. Qin Feiyong turned around and handed the Xueqi to Willow Tree. He said very seriously, Young master. Willow Tree was burning with anxiety. This is an order.
Qin Feiyong shouted. Willow Tree's eyes trembled. He bowed and took the Xueqi.
He said respectfully, This subordinate obeys. Qin Feiyong turned around, his eyes firmly locked on the fire dragon. The fire dragon waved its huge tail and also stared at Qin Feiyong. But the difference was, Qin Feiyong's expression was extremely solemn, and the fire dragon's eyes were full of sneer and murderous intent. Seeing that Willow Tree and the others and Yu Huang were still standing behind him, Qin Feiyong said angrily, What are you waiting for?
Leave.
Willow Tree sighed, looked at Ning Mingi and the others and said, Let's go. Ning Mingi, Li Yun, Yu Huang, and the 6 elders also sighed helplessly. They turned around and walked half a mile away. Then they stopped and looked up at Qin Feiyong, their eyes full of worry. He actually dared to fight the fire dragon one-on-one. How stupid! In the space divine item, Zhuge Mingyang snorted and also stared at Qin Feiyong and the fire dragon through the screen. Woo-woo! There was no storm around the hall. But at this moment, the sound of wind gradually sounded in the void. Qin Feiyong's long hair and clothes were fluttering at this moment. Around the fire dragon, gusts of wind gradually blew. A man and a beast stood in the air, looking at each other, invisible sparks colliding. The wind was getting stronger and stronger. The sound of the wind was also getting more and more ear-piercing. The fire dragon's body shook violently and shouted, "Can we begin?" "Bring it on," Qin Feiyong said. Boom! The aura of a peak 9-star War Emperor realm exploded. His long hair danced in the wind, his clothes fluttered, and his thin body, in the eyes of Willow Tree and the others, was like a huge mountain, incomparably majestic. "Go ahead. Continue to be arrogant. In any case, I will never show mercy." The fire dragon raised its head and laughed, its divine might rolling out. But in an instant, its cultivation was suppressed to the peak of the 9-star War Emperor realm. Following closely, without any hesitation, it raised its huge tail and charged towards Qin Feiyong with a deafening sound of wind and thunder. Boom! At the same time, Qin Feiyong's body also surged with a monstrous battle intent, as if he was possessed by a war god. That's right. It was the battle character art. Facing the fire dragon, he did not dare to be careless. After all, the fire dragon's strength far surpassed his. Most importantly, the fire dragon had a divine body and divine power. As for him, he had a mortal body and battle chi. There was no comparison at all. However, since he had already come this far, he would never back down. His self-esteem, his pride, would not allow him to back down. Chapter 1650. Boom! Qin Feiyong took a step forward, and an invisible force instantly roared into the sky, emitting an apocalyptic aura. 4 moves of the ruins of End. He had already evolved a divine art from the start, which showed how wary he was of the fire dragon. Boom! The invisible force rolled out and hit the fire dragon's giant tail. Immediately, a deafening explosion resounded in the area. Then, the fire dragon's giant tail crushed the invisible force without any resistance. Moreover, after being hit by the 4 moves of the ruins of End, not a single scale on the fire dragon's giant tail fell off. Is this a divine body? Qin Feiyong spat out a mouthful of blood, his body and mind trembling as he retreated. But this did not dampen his fighting spirit. On the contrary, he yearned for the war god realm more and more. He waved his hands at lightning speed. The 4 moves of the ruins of End were evolved again. However, after evolving the 4 moves of the ruins of End, a waning moon and a scorching sun appeared behind him. The 3 moves of Eclipse Moon. Kill! Qin Feiyong roared. His hair flew in anger. The 2 divine arts shook the sky and once again struck the fire dragon's giant tail. It's useless. In front of my divine body, all divine arts are rotten wood, unable to withstand a single blow. The fire dragon laughed maniacally as its giant tail pressed down fiercely. Boom! The 2 divine arts shattered one after another, not having any effect at all. They were really like rotten wood. Poof! Qin Feiyong spat out another mouthful of blood. After suffering a series of backlashes, his face was pale. Did you see that? Without Chong Shui, without the castle, what are you? You're nothing, even worse than an ant. If I want to kill you, I only need to move my tail. The fire dragon laughed maniacally with an extremely contemptuous expression. The more it's like this, the more I won't give up. My fighting spirit and fighting spirit are endless. Qin Feiyong roared angrily. Boom! Purple gold dragon chi soared into the sky, and a divine statue appeared in the sky. Qin Batian. Looking at the statue, the fire dragon's eyes immediately burned with raging flames of fury. It directly abandoned Qin Feiyong and soared into the sky. Its giant tail surged with divine power as it slapped towards the statue. The prestige of our ancestors is not something you can offend. Dai! Qin Feiyong roared. The statue raised the broken sword in its hand and slashed at the giant tail. Clang! Clang! Immediately, sparks flew everywhere. It was like a firework explosion, so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. He is the Qin Emperor? Willow Tree and the others looked at the statue and mumbled to themselves. Although they had never seen him in person, just by looking at this statue, they could imagine how handsome this person was back then. Qin Batian, back then I forced you to enter the 3rd level. Today, I killed your descendant. This is the result of offending me. The fire dragon roared angrily, exuding a monstrous aura. The giant tail surged with divine light, accompanied by a loud crack. The broken sword cracked inch by inch. And the statue was also disintegrating. Even the supreme divine art created by our ancestors is no match for it? Qin Feiyong murmured. No. It was not that the divine dragon art was inferior to the fire dragon. It was that his cultivation was not enough and could not unleash the true power of the divine dragon art. Crack. After a few breaths, the statue and broken sword completely disintegrated. But Qin Feiyong suddenly saw another palm-sized fragment falling from the sky. That fragment was completely red. Could it be? Qin Feiyong suddenly raised his head and glanced at the fire dragon's giant tail. The next moment, he was invigorated. On the fire dragon's giant tail, he found a piece of broken dragon scale and a drop of dragon blood dripped from the broken part. It turned out that the fragment that fell down was the fire dragon's dragon scale. This also meant that the divine dragon art could hurt the fire dragon. To Qin Feiyong, this was simply an enormous piece of good news. It actually hurt my dragon scale. At the same time, the fire dragon floated in the sky and looked at the broken dragon scale on the giant tail. Its eyes were filled with disbelief, but it was soon filled with anger. Unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable. Qin Batian. Today, I will send your descendant to hell and reunite with you. The fire dragon let out a furious roar as its divine power surged out. Although it suppressed its cultivation, the power of its divine power far surpassed Qin Feiyong's. The void within a radius of tens of thousands of miles was instantly shattered and collapsed. On the ground, yellow sand billowed, covering the sky and the sun. Qin Feiyong, go to hell for me. Its voice was like a loud bell, shaking the sky. The divine power was like a large waterfall, pouring down from the sky, heading straight for Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong's pupils constricted, and he hurriedly dodged. However, he was shocked to find that the divine power's aura was firmly locked onto him. In this situation, he had no way to dodge. Because no matter where he hid, the divine power would follow him. Unless he entered the castle. But before, he had sworn not to use the castle. Boom. He gritted his teeth and activated his armor. Divine weapon? The fire dragon raised its eyebrows. I only said that I don't need Chong Shui and the castle. I didn't say that I don't know how to use other divine weapons. This isn't a violation of the oath, right? Qin Feiyong said coldly. No. The fire dragon shook its head, its eyes filled with disdain, and said, as long as you don't use Chong Shui and the castle, you can use as many divine weapons as you want, because I don't care about them at all. Don't be too arrogant. Qin Feiyong roared angrily. Golden light burst out from his palm, turning into a golden torrent, going against the current and blasting towards the divine power. Return formula. Boom! In an instant, the golden light and divine power collided in the sky. Sigh! It's futile. Li Yun shook her head and sighed. The essence of divine power and battle chi were worlds apart. If divine power was the sky, then battle chi was an ant under the sky. They were not on the same level. Therefore, once the fire dragon used divine power, no matter what Qin Feiyong did, it was impossible to block it. But in the next moment, he was stunned. He saw that the golden light and divine power were in a stalemate in the sky. How is this possible? Not only Li Yun, but Ning Mingi was also shocked. As far as I know, this is a heaven-defying divine art that young master has mastered, called the return formula. It can give you a taste of your own medicine. If young master is also a war god, then I believe that with this return formula alone, young master can suppress the fire dragon. Willow Tree said. However, before he finished speaking, the The divine power shattered the golden light like a hot knife through butter and blasted towards Qin Feiyang. Although it's only been a few breaths, it's enough to show that the return formula is extraordinary. Li Yun murmured. Ning Mingyi nodded in agreement. But at the same time, everyone was worried. Facing the fire dragon's divine power and anger, could Qin Feiyang really withstand it? Puff. Looking at Qin Feiyang again. The return formula was crushed, and he suffered an extremely serious injury. His arm under the armor was lacerated and blood flowed out. There were even bloody marks on his body. But the fighting spirit in his eyes had never been extinguished. He was telling himself that he could not lose. Because if he were to lose here, everyone around him would die. Although the divine power was terrifying, he had a heart that refused to admit defeat. Swoosh! He took a step forward and flew towards the main hall. The fire dragon was stunned and sneered. You haven't even warmed up yet, and you're already running away? Qin Feiyang looked at the main hall and turned a deaf ear. Haha. Qin Batian, do you see this is your descendant? Even I feel embarrassed for you. The fire dragon laughed again and again, his expression full of pride. He looked down at Qin Feiyang and said, no matter where you run, it's a dead end. The divine power was rapidly approaching. An aura of death enveloped Qin Feiyang's heart. But he did not panic at all. He landed in front of the main hall's door and then turned to look at the divine power surging towards him. Boom! The divine power blasted towards him. In an instant, Qin Feiyang took a step forward and disappeared without a trace. Step formula. It was comparable to teleportation. Boom! The divine power blasted on the main hall's door. But the main hall's door did not even budge. Bastard! You actually broke your oath. The fire dragon was instantly furious. He thought that Qin Feiyang was hiding in the castle. Who said I broke my oath? Qin Feiyang's voice sounded. The fire dragon was stunned and looked towards the voice, only to see Qin Feiyang standing in front of him at this moment. When did you come up? He looked at Qin Feiyang in astonishment. I just came up. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly and looked down at the main hall's door with a trace of regret in his eyes. Actually, he did this because he wanted to borrow the fire dragon's divine power to smash the main hall's door. But this door's sturdiness was beyond his imagination. The mysterious man did not lie to him. Wanting to enter this hall was as difficult as ascending to heaven. So fast. Could it be teleportation? The fire dragon's heart was full of doubts. Disappearing in one step. This could only be done by teleportation. But this Qin Feiyang was clearly only a combat emperor. How could he master teleportation? Divine art. That's right, it must be some kind of auxiliary divine art. A divine art comparable to teleportation. How many heaven-defying divine arts did this kid have in his hands? If this kid was also a combat god, then the outcome of this battle. Thinking of this, the fire dragon couldn't help but shudder. If Qin Feiyang was also a combat god, then it might be the one to die in this battle. No. This kid's threat is too great, even surpassing Qin Batian. He must be eliminated today, otherwise there will be endless trouble in the future. The fire dragon's eyes turned cold. Swoosh! Its body moved like a bolt of lightning, sweeping in front of Qin Feiyang and sweeping its giant tail. The void here collapsed on the spot. Qin Feiyang took a step forward and disappeared again. In the next moment, he appeared behind the fire dragon. He looked at the collapsed void, his eyes full of yearning. This was the strength of a combat god. Even if his cultivation was suppressed, with his terrifying divine body, he could still shatter the void. Boom! Then, before the fire dragon could react, he took out the divine phoenix blade and slashed at the fire dragon's body with all his might. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere. Cracks immediately appeared on one of the dragon's scales. As expected of a divine artifact that has given birth to a spirit. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang was overjoyed. Although the divine phoenix blade had not recovered, its sharpness had not decreased. Of course, if it recovered, it would be even more terrifying. Little bastard, you're courting death. Feeling the pain from his back, the fire dragon was furious. In an instant, it raised its giant tail, and without turning around, it directly smashed towards Qin Feiyang. For an expert of the fire dragon's level, the cracking of dragon scales was indeed only a little pain. But it was also a disgrace.
Especially when the opponent was a small character like Qin Fei Yang, it couldn't tolerate it. Chapter 1651. Swish. But just as its giant tail was about to hit Qin Fei Yang disappeared without a trace. Bastard! The fire dragon was furious. Humph! Qin Fei Yang's cold snort echoed in the void. Immediately after, he appeared in the void to the left of the fire dragon. However, just as he appeared, the fire dragon also disappeared instantly. The next moment, the fire dragon appeared in front of him, and its giant tail slammed down. This recovery. Qin Fei Yang turned pale with fright. It was too fast, and he couldn't even dodge it. With an enormous bang, Qin Fei Yang was like a meteor, and his entire body was dripping with blood as he fell into the desert below. A huge pit with a diameter of hundreds of miles suddenly appeared. His entire body was bleeding. His body under the armor was almost cracked. "Young master," the willow tree roared. "Do you think you're the only one who can teleport? I'll let you see what real teleportation is." The fire dragon was furious. With another flash, he appeared beside Qin Fei Yang in an instant. Divine power rolled out and turned into divine iron, binding Qin Fei Yang and suspending him in the void. Preposterous! You actually used teleportation. Ning Mingi glared at the fire dragon and roared. The fire dragon glanced at Ning Mingi and the others and said indifferently, "Did I say that I don't need to teleport? Although you didn't say so, you're being too unfair. You're a war god after all. Facing Qin Fei Yang, a mere war emperor, you actually used teleportation. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at?" Li Yun said angrily. "After I kill you, who will know about this?" The fire dragon smiled coldly, staring at Qin Fei Yang who was tied up like a dumpling, and shouted, "Shatter for me!" Walala! Clang! The divine chain began to shrink. All the bones in Qin Fei Yang's body were broken one by one. Even with the armor and the battle symbol art protecting his body, he couldn't stop his body from shattering. Purple gold dragon blood spurted out from the gaps in the armor. "This is the consequence of going against me." The fire dragon grinned evilly. Ning Mingi said anxiously, "Willow Tree, quickly revive Chang Shui." "No." Willow Tree shook his head. Ning Mingi said angrily, "Can't you see that young master is about to be strangled to death?" Willow Tree was also struggling. "This is the young master's order. We must obey it." "Fool! Give me Chang Shui. Let me. If young master blames me, I'll take responsibility for it." Ning Mingi shouted. Willow Tree looked at Ning Mingi, his eyes flickering. Boom! But suddenly, one after another, terrifying auras erupted in the area. Willow Tree and the others were startled and hurriedly looked over. Those auras actually came from Qin Fei Yang. At the same time, waves of majestic vitality rushed out from Qin Fei Yang's body. The injuries that were covered by the armor immediately recovered at a terrifying speed. "This is..." Willow Tree and the others' eyes widened, and then ecstasy climbed up their faces. This was the power of cedar. "What's going on?" The fire dragon was extremely surprised. Buzz! Immediately after, waves of emerald green essence surged out, crazily attacking the divine iron. Crack! In less than 3 breaths, a divine iron suddenly broke. What? The fire dragon's eyes widened in anger. Before it could come back to its senses, the second, the third, the fourth, the divine iron that bound Qin Fei Yang broke one by one. Break! Qin Fei Yang roared, and his 4 limbs suddenly exerted force, and the divine iron on his body was all shattered in an instant. How is this possible? The fire dragon was dumbfounded. "Thank you," Qin Fei Yang said to Cedar in his heart, then looked at the fire dragon and shouted, "Nothing is impossible." In just a short while, the injuries on his body had already healed. He was hale and hearty, and his face was flushed. "Kill!" With a furious roar, he held the divine phoenix blade, used the walk formula, and charged towards the fire dragon. With a clang, another dragon scale on the fire dragon's body cracked. The fire dragon lowered its head to look at the cracked dragon scale, and a trace of a smile crept into its eyes. It slowly raised its head, looked at Qin Fei Yang opposite it, and said with a smile, "Congratulations, you have completely angered me. Now even if you want to die, It won't be that easy. Although it was smiling, it looked extremely ferocious. Extremely? Human.
Qin Feiyong could not help but feel a surge of fear in his heart.
Wait.
What am I afraid of?
I have faced so many difficulties, so many hardships, and I have walked through them step by step.
What is this little bit of hardships?
Boom. A shocking battle intent burst out from his body, shaking the heavens and earth. Yes.
That's it, or else it won't be fun. The fire dragon smiled ferociously, and teleported, appearing above Qin Feiyong in an instant, and its giant tail smashed down.
Even this piece of sky can't stop my battle intent, let alone you. Qin Feiyong roared, and his long hair danced in the void.
Like a god of war. He held the divine phoenix blade in his hand and faced the attack.
Crazy.
He is really crazy.
Ning Mingi shouted. Although the divine phoenix blade was strong, it could not be revived, and it could not shake the fire dragon's divine body. Clang. In a flash, the divine phoenix blade and the giant tail met. Accompanied by a deafening sound, another dragon scale on the fire dragon's giant tail shattered. But in this regard, the fire dragon ignored it. The giant tail pressed down fiercely. Crack. Qin Feiyong's arm under the armor shattered on the spot, and his whole body, like a meteorite, smashed into the desert below and was drowned by the yellow sand. The divine phoenix blade also flew out. Hee hee. Just watch. I'll make you beg for mercy on your knees. The fire dragon laughed, and his divine power fell from the sky like a waterfall, blasting towards Qin Feiyong. Even the heavens are not qualified to make me kneel. What are you? Qin Feiyong rushed out from the yellow sand. The vitality of the cedar tree was endless, and with the power of the purple gold dragon blood and the fire of life, the shattered arm had been repaired. He waved his hand, and the divine phoenix blade flew through the air and floated in front of him. I, Qin Feiyong, will never let you beg for mercy. He grabbed the divine phoenix blade and once again faced the divine power. His battle intent was boundless. His fighting spirit broke through the Han heavens. With a bang, the divine power fell, and Qin Feiyong was blasted down again. Yellow sand filled the sky. The wounds on his body were shocking. However, no one could see them because they were hidden by the armor. But everyone could see Qin Feiyong's unyielding spirit. He would rather die standing than live kneeling. Whoosh! Qin Feiyong rushed out from the yellow sand once again. His inextinguishable fighting spirit roared in all directions, and the sky changed color. He attacked the fire dragon again and again, but was blasted into the desert again and then climbed up again and again. Let's see how long you can watch. The fire dragon laughed fiercely, his divine power surging, destroying the heavens and earth. As long as the fighting spirit is not extinguished, the flames of war will not be extinguished. The stronger the fire dragon appeared, the more Qin Feiyong refused to admit defeat. His fighting spirit became higher and higher. His aura also became more and more astonishing, as if he could pierce through the sky. Don't be stupid. If this continues, even with Xueqing's help, he will still die. Ning Mingi shouted anxiously. However, Qin Feiyong acted as if he didn't hear it, and continued to fight with the fire dragon again and again. The purple gold dragon blood dyed the sky. Not bad, this kid. Above the clouds, a weak murmur could be heard. No one heard it. No one noticed that there was a golden small beast standing above. The guardian python was also at the side. At this moment, it was staring at Qin Feiyong, its eyes flickering with a sharp light. As time passed, the fire dragon began to feel anxious. Why couldn't this little bastard be beaten to death? One had to know. Although it suppressed its cultivation, with its strength, not to mention a war emperor, even a false god was enough to destroy it. Boom! Qin Feiyong once again smashed into the desert. At this moment, the desert was in a mess. Qin Feiyong didn't know how many times he had smashed into the desert. But every time, he was able to get up. Of course, he also knew that the reason why he could get up again and again was because of Xueqi. If not for Xueqi, he didn't know how many times he would have died. Xueqing's vitality allowed him to have a true immortal body. Although he had suffered countless serious injuries, his aura was not weak at all. On the contrary, the fighting spirit exuding from his body became more and more terrifying. Rumble! Unknowingly, the sky was covered by dark clouds. Thunder and lightning intertwined, and the wind howled. Walala! Heavy rain poured down. Qin Feiyong's clothes and long hair were instantly drenched. But no matter how strong the storm was, it extinguished his fighting spirit and will. Clang! Boom! The divine phoenix blade clanged and swept across the sky, slashing onto the fire dragon's body again and again. Flames burst out. The dragon's scales shattered one after another. But this was not enough to cause actual damage to the fire dragon. The fire dragon was even more shocked. It turned out that it had planned to slowly torture Qin Feiyong. But now, it realized that it couldn't do it at all. Roar! It raised its head and roared, and a fiery red sun rose from behind it. This world suddenly seemed to have turned into a big furnace. The scorching sun rose slowly, getting bigger and bigger. Finally, the scorching sun rose into the clouds, hanging in the sky like a sun. The rain evaporated. The desert dried up. A tremendous amount of godly power surged in all directions and instantly enveloped the entire area. And in that scorching sun, there was a huge dragon shadow roaring. The dragon's might descended, covering the sky and the earth. When the people present saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel a sense of despair. Divine art, Willow Tree murmured. The appearance of the divine art proved that the fire dragon didn't want to continue playing. Ning Mingi roared, "Young master, give the order, revive Chong Shui." Yu Huang also urged, "Now isn't the time to be swayed by loyalty. Hurry up." But Qin Feiyong still turned a deaf ear. He raised his head and stared at the scorching sun hanging in the sky, as well as the dragon shadow roaring in the scorching sun. Not only was there no fear in his eyes, but his fighting spirit was still soaring. Fight! There seemed to be a voice roaring in his heart. Boom! All of a sudden, his fighting spirit rose to an unprecedented height. The space around him began to twist and distort. At the same time, a dull sound came from his body, as if he had broken some shackles. Then, he seemed to have lost consciousness and closed his eyes. His mind entered a space of nothingness. Chapter 1652. Why is he still closing his eyes? Willow Tree and the others were bewildered. The fire dragon was also slightly taken aback, and then sneered, "Have you given up resisting? In fact, you should have done so earlier, because no matter how you struggle, you can't defeat me." Roar! His voice fell. In the scorching sun hanging in the sky, the dragon shadow suddenly let out a loud dragon roar. Immediately after, the dragon shadow rushed out of the scorching sun, carrying the power to destroy heaven and earth, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws towards Qin Feiyong. "Young master, be careful." Willow Tree quivered and hurriedly shouted. But Qin Feiyong seemed not to have heard it, and also seemed not to have noticed the roaring dragon shadow. His eyes were still closed. In the empty space, Qin Feiyong glanced around, with a trace of confusion in his eyes. Where was this? How did he suddenly come to such a strange place? He tentatively took a step forward. There was nothing, and there was dead silence all around, as if he had fallen into a bottomless black abyss. What is war? Suddenly, a faintly discernible voice came from the darkness in front of him. Who's talking? Qin Feiyong was surprised. Answer me, what is war? The faintly discernible voice sounded again. Qin Feiyong used the move formula and rushed towards the place where the voice came from. The darkness was endless. Answer me, what is war? The ethereal voice sounded again. War. Qin Feiyong stopped, his brows tightly knitted together. Wait. This voice, why was it so familiar? The next moment, his body and mind trembled, and his face was full of bewilderment. This voice, wasn't it his own voice? But why would his voice appear here? Answer me, or you will never see me. The ethereal voice sounded again. Qin Feiyong lowered his head and pondered. What was war? After a long time he raised his head, looked at the dark area in front of him, and said, War is perseverance and unyielding. War is unyielding and unyielding. To fight is to rather die in glory than to live in dishonor. A fighter will never admit defeat. Warriors are invincible. Warriors are feared by gods and demons. Warrior, break the universe. Warriors, fight against the heavens and the earth. This is the battle in my heart. Qin Feiyong shouted. A terrifying battle intent burst out from him like an erupting volcano, spreading in all directions. Strands of divine light suddenly emerged from the darkness ahead. The divine light became more and more intense. It was as if the clouds were parted to reveal the sky. The darkness quickly dissipated. In the end, a huge character appeared in the void in front of Qin Feiyong. Fight! It was a battle. The word battle floated in the air. It was as big as a mountain and shone brightly. Every single stroke was like a god of war, emitting a boundless battle intent. Were you the one talking just now? Qin Feiyong looked at the word battle in astonishment. Wrong. This is your heartfelt thought. This word battle was also formed by your will. Unyielding and unyielding, this is the profound meaning of the battle's secret art. The ethereal voice sounded again. Following closely, the word battle turned into a stream of light and merged with Qin Feiyong's mind. Although a long time had passed here, it was only a moment outside. Roar! The dragon shadow roared in the sky, and the terrifying divine power destroyed all directions. Willow tree! Ningmingi shouted. Willow tree gritted its teeth and immediately summoned Chang Shui. Swish! But at this moment, Qin Feiyong suddenly opened his eyes. 2 rays of purple gold light burst out of his eyes. Unyielding and unyielding, never admitting defeat. I see. He murmured and suddenly looked up at the dragon roar. An even more terrifying battle intent roared out from his body. The desert trembled. The void shook. The battle intent went straight to the sky. The dark clouds dissipated, the rainstorm stopped, and the sky instantly became clear again. What's going on? It can actually trigger the power of heaven and earth. Willow Tree and the others looked at the sky in shock. Fire Dragon looked at this scene and was also extremely shocked. The dragon shadow had already roared in front of Qin Feiyong. Warriors the gods and demons fear. Warriors, destroy the universe. Breakers, battle the heavens and the earth. Today I, Qin Feiyong, will use endless battle intent to go against the heavens, break the rules, shatter the shackles, and open the path to becoming a god. Qin Feiyong roared, his body surging with battle intent. His aura instantly soared crazily. Woo-woo! Boom! In the sky, the wind and clouds surged again, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. But it was not a dark cloud. It was a purple-gold cloud. The dancing thunder and lightning were also purple-gold. What? To use battle intent to break the shackles and open the path to becoming a god. How is this possible? Willow Tree and the others were extremely shocked. This was the first time they had heard of such a path to becoming a god. Crack! Suddenly, a purple-gold divine thunder fell from the sky, carrying a shocking heavenly power, and struck towards Qin Feiyong. Thunder tribulation actually fell from the sky. What's going on? Everyone was surprised. Going against the heavens. Heavenly tribulation. Above the clouds, the golden small beast looked at Qin Feiyong and muttered to itself. Listening to its tone, it was more and more interested in Qin Feiyong. Crack! The heavenly tribulation fell at an extremely fast speed. Almost at the same time as the dragon shadow, it blasted onto Qin Feiyong's body. His body was instantly torn to pieces. The cedar that merged into his body was constantly releasing a huge amount of vitality to repair his body. Crack! The second heavenly tribulation fell again, destroying all directions. Willow Tree and the others, including the fire dragon, did not dare to stay and quickly retreated. Boom! The heavenly tribulation blasted onto Qin Feiyong's body, and with a crack, the armor on his body was actually shattered. Crack! The third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth heavenly tribulation fell one after another. Qin Feiyong's entire body was submerged by the heavenly tribulation, and his body was fragmented, and even the vitality of the cedar could not repair it. Crack! The ninth heavenly tribulation fell with a loud bang. Qin Feiyong's body, Qiankuan bag, and even the inner demons were directly shattered. The tens of thousands of cedar that merged into his body rushed out of his flesh and blood. But at this moment, every cedar looked dim and their leaves were also withered. Obviously, in order to heal Qin Feiyong's injuries, they had little vitality left. At the same time, the ancient castle also appeared. It floated in the void,
and pieces of divine light shone down, enveloping all the cedar and blocking the remaining power of the heavenly tribulation. The divine phoenix blade also rose into the air and floated beside the ancient castle, as if it was seeking protection. In the sky, the purple-gold clouds also dispersed. The heavenly tribulation also disappeared. Everything slowly returned to normal. Is he dead? Willow Tree and the others looked at where Qin Feiyong was and were all dumbfounded. He didn't die in the hands of the fire dragon, but died under the heavenly tribulation? Going against the heavens. It was easy to say, but in reality, the price was one's life. Why did he have to do this? He had already comprehended the profound meaning of becoming a god, and becoming a god was only a matter of time. Why did he have to be so stupid? Wait. I feel that the slave seal hasn't disappeared. What's going on? Since he's dead, my enslavement mark should disappear as well. Ning Mingi suddenly said. It didn't disappear? Willow Tree was stunned, and quickly looked into his sea of consciousness to sense carefully. After a while, his eyes trembled. The slave seal really did not disappear. If the slave seal did not disappear, did it mean that the young master was actually not dead? But the fire dragon did not know all this. Seeing Qin Feiyong being blown to pieces by the heavenly realm, he was stunned at first, and then laughed. You want to overestimate yourself and open a new path to becoming a god. How ridiculous. After that, he looked at Willow Tree and the others, and said, although Chong Shui is in your hands, I have a guardian and a creator behind me. You can choose to submit or die. Willow Tree looked up at him, and a trace of contempt flashed in his eyes. Then he looked away without saying a word and looked at Qin Feiyong. Young master, I believe that you are not dead. He clenched his hands, and his face was full of confidence and expectation. It seems that you have chosen to die. In that case, I will fulfill your wish. Fire Dragon smiled coldly, and was about to fight Willow Tree and the others. Unyielding and unyielding, never say defeat. Suddenly, an ethereal voice echoed in the void. Young master. Willow Tree and the others were refreshed and scanned the void. Because it was Qin Feiyong's voice. Not dead? How is this possible? Fire Dragon scanned the void, and his millstone-sized fierce eyes were full of disbelief. But everyone only heard Qin Feiyong's voice, but did not see Qin Feiyong? Boom! All of a sudden, an astonishing battle intent surged out, roaring in the void like a torrent. Everyone looked at the place where the battle intent emerged. Immediately, a drop of purple-gold dragon blood entered their sight. That drop of purple-gold dragon blood was suspended in the yellow sand, condensed and did not melt, like a gem, shining with divine light, extremely dazzling. Ning Mingi said, that can't be the young master, right? Before his voice died away, that drop of purple-gold dragon blood suddenly dispersed and turned into a vague figure. Then, the figure quickly solidified. In less than 5 breaths, a living Qin Feiyong appeared in front of everyone's eyes. He closed his eyes, his skin was like a newborn baby, and his whole body was glowing with a dazzling purple-gold divine light. Even the inner demons and the Chenkuan bag were condensed again, floating next to Qin Feiyong. The inner demons looked at Qin Feiyong with a complicated expression. But at this moment, Qin Feiyong did not have the slightest aura on him, as if he was an ordinary person. How can this be? Fire Dragon shook his head frantically, his face full of disbelief. He's not dead. He's really not dead. Willow Tree and the others were excited. Little bastard, the heavenly tribulation can't kill you, let me. The fire dragon suddenly let out a roar and swooped down like a bolt of lightning. Its enormous tail was raised high up in the air as it swatted towards Qin Feiyong. Young master, get out of the way. Willow Tree's face changed, and he hurriedly shouted. Swish! At the same time, Qin Feiyong suddenly opened his eyes, and 2 rays of divine light shot out from his eyes. Boom! The next moment, his figure shuddered as a terrifying aura burst out from his body. Following that, his cultivation was revealed before everyone's eyes. False god! Willow Tree and the others were shocked. They did not expect that he would succeed and open a new path to becoming a true god. Fire Dragon's eyes also trembled, and then the murderous intent in his eyes became thicker. A wave of divine power appeared from his giant tail, shattering a large area.
It's time for me to fight back.
Qin Feiyong murmured, his eyes flashing with murderous intent. He grabbed the air, and the divine phoenix blade, which was floating next to the ancient castle, suddenly flew across the sky and fell into his hand. Then, Qin Feiyong grabbed the divine phoenix blade, and a surge of purple-gold divine power rushed out from his palm. The divine phoenix blade quickly recovered, and he slashed. Clang! Accompanied by a deafening metallic sound, a few dragon scales on the fire dragon's giant tail shattered on the spot. And the divine phoenix blade did not even enter its flesh. Ah! Fire dragon screamed in pain, and rushed to the sky like lightning. The real battle has only just begun.
Chapter 1653.
One man and one beast flew into the sky one after another. As it continued to recover, the sharpness of the divine phoenix blade became more and more terrifying.
Clang!
Qin Feiyong's eyes were like lightning. With a wave of his hand, the divine phoenix blade pierced through the air like lightning and slashed fiercely on the fire dragon's body. A few dragon scales were shattered again. The divine phoenix blade sank into its flesh and blood flowed out. The fire dragon howled in pain. It suddenly turned around and glared at Qin Feiyong. Its eyes were burning with raging flames of fury. Little bastard, do you really think that you can turn the situation around after stepping into the semi-divinity realm?
Let me tell you, don't be too naive.
Boom!
Its aura also skyrocketed. In an instant, it rose to the semi-divinity realm.
The divine phoenix blade was directly sent flying by its aura.
Bastard, shameless.
Willow Tree cussed angrily.
There's nothing wrong with it.
After all, we agreed from the beginning that its cultivation would be suppressed to the same level as Brother Qin. Now that Brother Qin has broken through to the semi-divinity realm, it should also raise its cultivation to the semi-divinity realm.
Li Yun said.
Ning Mingi raised his eyebrows and said, in that case, won't the young master lose his advantage?
He has no advantage against the fire dragon in the first place.
Even if he breaks through to the semi-divinity realm now, there is still a huge gap between his divine power and divine body. To put it bluntly, once the fire dragon goes crazy, it will immediately destroy everything. Because now, the cedar can no longer provide it with vitality.
Li Yun said in a deep voice.
Wrong. Yu Huang said.
What's wrong?
Li Yun was suspicious.
Just wait and see.
The fire dragon will definitely be the one defeated in the end.
Yu Huang smiled coldly. Li Yun was stunned. He had so much confidence in Qin Feiyong. Back to the fire dragon.
After its cultivation reached the semi-divinity realm, a wave of divine power immediately emerged from its body and rushed toward Qin Feiyong. The divine might emitted by the divine power was several times stronger than before. As its cultivation increased, the power of its divine power would also increase. However, Qin Feiyong's expression remained unchanged.
Whoosh!
He made a grabbing motion in the air, and the armor below flew up and automatically attached itself to his body. The battle character art was activated once again. Immediately after, he grabbed the divine phoenix blade and stepped into the air to meet the fire dragon's divine power. No matter how many tricks you have, you won't be able to escape today. The fire dragon grinned.
Really?
Qin Feiyong snorted coldly. He raised his other arm and a golden light burst out. Return formula. He wanted to see how powerful the return formula would be after he broke through to the false god realm. Boom! In an instant, the golden light and the divine power collided. At this moment, even the heavens and earth lost their color. The next moment, under the shocked gaze of the fire dragon, the divine power was actually reflected back. How is this possible?
Li Yun's face was also filled with shock.
The return formula is a heaven-defying divine art. Previously, it couldn't reflect the fire dragon's divine power because Qin Feiyong's cultivation wasn't high enough. Now, with Qin Feiyong's breakthrough, the power of the return formula naturally manifested.
Yu Huang said.
A heaven-defying divine art. Li Yun murmured. In the blink of an eye, the divine power turned in the air and pounced towards the fire dragon. The fire dragon was so shocked by this scene that it couldn't react for a long time. Boom! Accompanied by a loud bang, the divine power instantly drowned it, and the dragon scales shattered one after another. Dragon blood splattered and dyed the void red. Little bastard, I swear I won't stop until I destroy your bones and scatter your ashes. The fire dragon roared and teleported. It appeared behind Qin Feiyong in an instant and smashed its huge tail at him. A large part of the void suddenly collapsed. I'm afraid you don't have the ability now. Qin Feiyong sneered, holding the divine phoenix saber and slashing with it. The sharpness of the saber was overwhelming. Boom! The two collided. A few more dragon scales shattered. However, the fire dragon, who had raised his cultivation to the false god realm, was several times stronger than before. Qin Feiyong was also sent flying on the spot. The terrifying force even caused the skin on his arm to split open. An ant will always be an ant. Even if I give you a chance, you won't be able to turn things around. Hualong laughed wildly. He dragged his enormous body and like a huge mountain, charged towards Qin Feiyong to crush him. Even an ant can defy the heavens. Qin Feiyong stabilized his body and roared. Purple gold dragon chi and flaming battle chi rolled out. The two god statues immediately appeared in the void above. They were both middle-aged men. One of them was holding a broken sword, as if he was the ruler of this world, displaying the domineering aura of a king. The other was holding a long spear, as if an emperor had descended to the world, looking down on the mountains and rivers as if everything was an ant in his eyes. That's right. It was the third move of the divine dragon seal and the third move of the fire phoenix art, the emperor of all spirits. Clang! As soon as the two divine statues appeared, they waved the broken sword and the long spear at the same time and charged towards the fire dragon. Although the two peerless overlords were not real people, it was enough to make people tremble in fear. Roar! Immediately, the fire dragon let out a miserable howl, and a 3 feet long and half a meter deep wound appeared on its giant tail. Blood poured out like a waterfall. However, the two deity arts also shattered with the sound. Qin Feiyong also suffered a considerable backlash, and purple gold dragon blood kept spurting out. However, compared to the fire dragon's injuries, his injuries were nothing. Sigh. Looking at this scene, Qin Feiyong shook his head and sighed. The difference between a false god and a war god was still very big. Although the fire dragon suppressed its cultivation, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to destroy its divine body. If it was a false god, it would be able to kill it instantly. However, the fire dragon flew into a rage out of humiliation. Boom! A blazing sun rose into the sky, shining with divine light. A dragon shadow roared in the blazing sun, its divine power surging, shaking the heavens and the earth. Not good, it also used a divine art. The willow tree's expression changed. So what if it's a divine art? Qin Feiyong gathered his thoughts, and his aura was like a rainbow. A wave of fire rolled out, surging into the sky. The sky instantly turned into a sea of fire. The divine power roared, and the sky trembled, crazily colliding with the divine power of the blazing sun. What kind of divine art is this? I've never seen it before? The willow tree was shocked. Yeah, I've never seen it before either. Yu Huang said. Roar! In the blazing sun, the dragon shadow roared out. Chirp! At the same time, accompanied by a high-pitched phoenix cry, a divine phoenix flapped its huge wings and flew out of the sea of fire. The divine phoenix's body was thousands of feet long. When it spread its wings, it covered the sky, and its divine power was boundless. Divine phoenix? Could this be the fourth style of the fire phoenix technique? The willow tree murmured. Kill! Qin Feiyong and the fire dragon roared at almost the same time, their killing intent soaring into the sky. The dragon shadow roared in the sky. The divine phoenix's flames were torrential. The two divine beasts suddenly fought in the sky, and the sky was dark. Chirp! More than 10 breaths later, with a wail, the divine phoenix disintegrated. Divine power. False god power. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. He could feel that the fire dragon's divine art was not comparable to the fire phoenix technique at all. But in the end, the fire dragon's divine art had the upper hand. This was the difference between divine power and false god power. The fire phoenix technique was evolved from the false god power. The fire dragon's divine art was evolved from divine power. Although the fire dragon's divine art was not comparable to the fire phoenix technique, because of divine power, it had the upper hand. And do you believe me now? No matter how many tricks you have, they are useless in front of me. Go to hell for me.
The fire dragon laughed. The dragon shadow suddenly swooped down, roaring towards Qin Feiyong. It's not over yet. What are you in a hurry for? Qin Feiyong snorted from his nose. Before his voice faded. Chirp. Accompanied by a phoenix cry, another divine phoenix rushed out of the sea of fire and pounced towards the dragon shadow.
What's going on?
The fire dragon was bewildered. Qin Feiyong smiled coldly. This is the ultimate mystery of the fire phoenix technique, rebirth from fire. Rebirth from fire? Doesn't that mean that this divine phoenix will continue to be reborn? Li Yun was bewildered. That should be the case. Willow Tree nodded.
Li Yun said in shock. Then Brother Qin is now in an invincible position?
Li Yun's voice fell into the fire dragon's ears.
The fire dragon immediately laughed and said, What invincible position?
Once a person dies, no matter how powerful the divine art is, it will disappear. Finished. It opened its mouth wide. A dragon's breath surged out of its mouth like a torrent, drowning the sky and rushing towards Qin Feiyong. This was also one of the divine dragon's trump cards, comparable to a divine art.
Wherever the dragon's breath passed, the void shattered, and a terrifying aura rolled in all directions.
Then let's see who will die in the end. Qin Feiyong's eyes became colder and colder. The return formula reappeared. The golden light was dazzling, illuminating heaven and earth. Compared to the divine dragon technique and the fire phoenix technique, the six-word divine art was the real heaven-defying divine art. Boom! In just a moment, the golden light collided with the dragon's breath.
With a deafening sound, the two were annihilated at the same time in the void.
To be able to fight on par with the dragon's breath, this return formula is indeed heaven-defying. Ning Mingi was secretly speechless. Chirp! High up in the sky, the divine phoenix wailed and dissipated again. But in the next moment, another divine phoenix roared out from the sea of fire. Looking at the fire phoenix that was constantly being reborn, the fire dragon's expression became extremely gloomy. At this moment, Qin Feiyong's voice sounded and said, I've played with you for so long, it's time to end it. In his words, there was a shocking killing intent. End. The fire dragon was stunned, lowered his head to look at Qin Feiyong, and mocked. Are you joking? The one who should end the battle is me, not you, understand? Then let's wait and see. Qin Feiyong smiled and put away the divine phoenix blade. Why did he put away the divine phoenix blade? Willow Tree and the others were bewildered. Swish! In the next moment, under their shocked gazes, they saw that Qin Feiyong had appeared one after another beside Qin Feiyong. Finally, standing in the void above, there were as many as 101 Qin Feiyong. Hualong was also shocked by this sudden turn of events. Every Qin Feiyong was exactly the same, and their cultivation had all reached the false god realm. What the hell is this? Clones. The fire dragon raised his eyebrows, his divine power surged, carrying with it an apocalyptic aura, and pounced towards the 101 Qin Feiyong.
For moves of the ruins of the end.
At the same time, 101 Qin Feiyongs shouted in unison. Boom! Invisible forces emerged, and a terrifying destructive force erupted in an instant, shaking heaven and earth. What's going on? The aura strength of these divine arts is actually the same. Chapter 1654. As pseudo-gods, of course they knew about clones. Clones were usually condensed from god power, pseudo-god power, or battle chi. Therefore, generally speaking, clones, be it strength or methods, were weaker than the original body. But now, Qin Feiyong's clones, be it methods or aura, were exactly the same as Qin Feiyong's original body. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they would even think that these were Qin Feiyong's twin brothers. The fire dragon was also extremely shocked. What kind of heaven-defying divine art was this? Kill! Qin Feiyong and 100 clones raised their arms and pointed at the fire dragon. The invisible force roaring above their heads turned into a huge wave and rolled towards the fire dragon. Good. Let me see how heaven-defying your methods are. The fire dragon roared. It opened its mouth and spat out a dragon breath, pouncing on the invisible force. Boom! Both of them were aggressive, like comets streaking across the sky, and fiercely colliding with each other. This time, it was no longer a stalemate. The invisible force crushed over, and the dragon breath was instantly annihilated. Immediately after, the invisible force pounced on the fire dragon. Roar! The fire dragon's scream suddenly resounded through the sky. The fire dragon, who was drowned by the invisible force, had its dragon scales shattered, its skin and flesh were torn open, and its flesh and blood flew everywhere.
Amazing! Li Yun murmured.
How is it? I was right, the fire dragon will be defeated sooner or later. Yu Huang said proudly. Li Yun glanced at it, then looked at Qin Feiyong and the fire dragon again, and said, although Brother Qin has turned the situation around, you can't let your guard down. What are you trying to say?
Willow Tree and the others looked at him suspiciously.
Don't forget the fire dragon's true cultivation. Don't believe the fire dragon's promises so easily. I'm sure that when its life is at stake, it will not hesitate to use its full strength.
Li Yun thought to herself.
You mean, it doesn't suppress its cultivation?
Yu Huang said.
Yes. We have to be vigilant, just in case. Wait, I have a plan that might be able to eliminate the fire dragon in one fell swoop.
Li Yun said.
What? Willow Tree asked. Li Yun muttered a few words to himself. Willow Tree, Ning Mingi.
Yu Huang's eyes lit up when he heard this. He nodded and said, let's do that.
The next moment, Li Yun disappeared with Willow Tree and the others. Qin Feiyong also noticed their disappearance, but he didn't pay attention to it. Because he didn't need to think to know that he must have gone to the spatial divine item. His gaze was definitely locked onto the fire dragon. At this moment, the fire dragon's entire body was a mess of flesh and blood. Its dragon scales were also in pieces. A trace of weakness finally crept up in its huge pupils. But it was more anger. It stared at Qin Feiyong, its eyes like a blade, and said word by word, little bastard, you have to pay the price for your stupid actions. Divine power surged, and 9 fire dragons appeared out of nowhere. Each fire dragon was more than 10,000 feet long, like majestic mountain ridges, hovering above its head, and the dragon's power shook the sky. 9 dragons killing array. As it roared, the 9 fire dragons connected head to tail, forming a pentagram pattern. Boom! In an instant, a destructive aura burst out from his body. What kind of divine art is this? What a terrifying aura! In the spatial divine item, Willow Tree and the others trembled physically and mentally, and a feeling that came from the depths of their souls emerged uncontrollably. And behind them, there were more than 100 people. They were the fake gods of the Vanga League and the Vanga League. The leader of the 7 evils, Xueqi, was also there. Looking at the pentagram, their faces were filled with horror. Little bastard, wake up! The fire dragon roared. The pentagram formed by the 9 fire dragons suddenly fell, and the void within 10,000 miles was instantly shattered, turning into nothingness. The one who should wake up is you. The Emperor of 9 and 5. The Emperor of all spirits. 101 Qin Feiyong roared. Rumble! In the sky, a gale suddenly rose, and purple gold clouds surged from the horizon. Following a series of deafening claps of thunder, 202 statues appeared in the sky. That divine power roared in all directions. The sky, the void, and the desert all trembled violently. If God blocks, kill God. If devil blocks, kill devil. Kill! Qin Feiyong roared into the sky. The 202 statues raised their broken swords and spears at the same time, and attacked the pentagram. Rumble! A heaven-shaking, earth-shattering sound suddenly exploded in this place. Lu Mu and the others were spurting blood from their ears. Crack! The pentagram shattered on the spot. The fire dragon spat out a mouthful of dragon blood. Its body trembled, and its eyes were filled with disbelief. The 9 dragons killing formation was its strongest move, but it couldn't stop Qin Feiyong. Just as it was distracted, the 202 statues arrived in front of it, and the sharpness of the spears and broken swords tore through the sky. The fire dragon quivered and hurriedly performed teleportation, fleeing through the air. Roar! But if it didn't escape unscathed. Accompanied by a heart-wrenching cry, a dragon tail more than 10 meters long fell from the sky. Willow Tree, Yu Huang, when the battle is over, I'll treat you to dragon meat. Seeing this, Qin Feiyong laughed out loud,
and instantly rushed to the front of the dragon tail, and slapped it with his palm. The dragon tail immediately flew towards the place where Willow Tree and the others disappeared. Dragon meat. Inside the spatial divine object. Their eyes lit up. Willow Tree urged, "Li Yun, hurry!" Li Yun immediately left the spatial divine object, grabbed the giant tail, and returned to the spatial divine object. At the same time, the fire dragon appeared in the sky a few miles away. Blood flowed out of the wound. Looking at the dragon tail that was taken away by Li Yun, its entire body was trembling. But it wasn't fear. It was anger. Shwa! All of a sudden, it looked at Qin Feiyong, its eyes flashing with strong killing intent. Haha! Following closely, it actually raised its head and laughed wildly. Is it crazy? Inside the spatial divine object, Willow Tree and the others looked at each other. Laugh all you want, because this might be the last time you'll laugh in your life. Qin Feiyong stood against the wind and waved his hand fiercely. 100 incarnations also waved their hands at the same time. The 202 god statues wielded broken swords and long spears. Like a powerful army of war gods, they charged toward the fire dragon with vigor. The last time you laugh? Haha. Kid, you're too naive, too laughable, too childish, too ignorant, too stupid. Now, I'll send you to hell to reunite with Qin Batian. Boom! A monstrous divine might rushed out from the fire dragon's body. Its cultivation instantly broke through the bottleneck of the false god and stepped into the war god realm. Don't forget our promise. Qin Feiyong was shocked and said angrily. What bullshit promise? Do you think I care? Fire dragon laughed loudly, divine power covering the sky and earth, sweeping through the sky. Crack! Boom! The 202 god statues shattered one after another. At the same time, above, the dragon figure's aura also surged and instantly tore the divine phoenix apart. Then, it rushed into the sea of fire. The entire sea of fire was instantly annihilated and turned into nothingness. Puff! Qin Feiyong spat out blood from his mouth. His body kept retreating, and his face was pale. As expected of a beast, you don't even have the slightest bit of integrity. He roared angrily and retreated like lightning. Clang! But at the same time as he retreated, the void in front of him suddenly exploded with a heaven-shaking bang. Then, a sharp aura that could tear the sky and earth apart appeared. Willow Tree and the others appeared with Chang Xue. Chui Li and more than 100 false gods of the Vanga League and the Fengtian Palace also appeared with them. And Chang Xue was currently in a state of awakening. I see. Seeing this, Qin Feiyong suddenly understood. It turned out that Willow Tree and the others entered the spatial divine item to secretly awaken Chang Xue. You went back on your words. Damn it! Willow Tree roared. Clang! Blue snow immediately flew out of his hand, turning into a streak of light that slashed towards Huolong's divine power. Boom! The divine power disintegrated like dead wood. Chang Xue went straight for the fire dragon. Everything happened too quickly and too suddenly. The fire dragon had no time to react at all, his eyes filled with fear. Just as the fire dragon was about to die at the hands of Chang Xue, a rule power suddenly descended from the sky and blasted toward Chang Xue. Clang! Chang Xue was immediately sent flying. The fire dragon also came back to its senses and immediately used teleportation to fly up into the sky. Damn Guardian! Willow Tree roared and controlled Chang Xue to fly into the sky. Like an arrow, it pierced through the fire dragon's abdomen. Roar! The fire dragon let out a miserable howl as his sea of qi shattered on the spot. Just as the fire dragon fell in despair, the rule power appeared again and swept up the fire dragon and disappeared without a trace. Willow Tree glared at the sky and roared, "Bastard, come out and fight if you have the guts. What's the point of hiding in the dark?" That's right. You're a guardian after all. Don't you find it embarrassing? Ning Mingi and the others also cursed angrily. Qin Feiyong also had an angry look on his face. You guys are really arrogant. Suddenly, a mocking voice spread in the sky. Whoosh! Then, a golden stream of light descended like lightning and appeared in the void in front of Qin Feiyong and the others. It was the golden small beast. There was no aura on it at all. Qin Feiyong and the others looked at the small beast and didn't feel the slightest sense of danger. Whoosh!
2 more streams of light descended from the sky. It was the guardian python and the fire dragon.
The 2 beasts landed behind the golden small beast and glanced at Qin Feiyong and the others with eyes full of ridicule.
Did you guys notice that they are very respectful to this small beast?
Willow Tree was surprised.
Yes. Everyone secretly responded.
Qin Feiyong glanced at the giant python and the fire dragon, then looked at the golden small beast and said, "Are you the creator of the miracle?"
Creator?
The small beast was stunned and said playfully, "Do you think I am?"
Don't talk nonsense with it. Just attack. Willow Tree shouted and controlled Xueqi to attack the small beast.
Seeing this scene, the giant python and the fire dragon's eyes were even more mocking.
Young man, don't be too impulsive.
The small beast smiled faintly. It didn't seem to make any movements, but an invisible force emerged out of thin air.
The next moment, Xueqi stopped in the void, motionless. How is this possible?
Willow Tree and the others were shocked.
Qin Feiyong was also dumbfounded.
He looked at the small beast in shock and said with difficulty, "The power of law, time stop."
Not bad, you have a good eye. Chapter 1655.
What? The power of law? Lu Mu and the others trembled as they looked at the little golden beast.
They couldn't help but tremble. What kind of existence is this?
It has mastered the power of law.
Qin Feiyong's pupils also constricted. Although he had seen through it, he was still surprised when he heard the small beast admit it.
Suddenly, the small beast waved its paw and Xueqi floated to it.
What do you want? Seeing this, Qin Feiyong looked at the small beast in shock and anger.
But the small beast turned a deaf ear to him. It reached out its paw, grabbed Xueqi, and looked at it up and down.
What's going on?
Xueqi didn't resist.
Even Xueqi is afraid of it.
Willow Tree and the others were shocked. Qin Feiyong's face was gloomy and he shouted, "Xueqi, come back!"
Boom! All of a sudden,
the small beast waved its paw and a terrifying power rushed toward Qin Feiyong and the others.
Bastard! Give me back Xueqi! Qin Feiyong roared and his power burst out.
Willow Tree and the others also released their power, which intertwined with Qin Feiyong's power and blasted toward the small beast.
Boom! Accompanied by a loud noise.
Qin Feiyong's group of over 100 fake divinities were like withered trees before the little beast's divine might. They were unable to withstand a single blow and were instantly disintegrated.
It's so scary.
It's countless times more powerful than the Guardian.
Everyone's body and mind trembled.
Boom! Then, the little beast's divine might blotted out the sky and covered the earth.
Puff!
Qin Feiyong and the others were blown away on the spot, blood gushing out of their mouths. "Before I say anything, whoever dares to say another word will be killed without mercy."
Small Beast glanced at Qin Feiyong's group and said coldly.
Then, he lowered his head and continued to size up Xueqi. Qin Feiyong steadied himself, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and stared at Small Beast, his eyes flashing with a shocking coldness.
Willow Tree and the others stood behind Qin Feiyong, keeping quiet out of fear. After a long time, Small Beast chuckled. Not bad, not bad.
This dagger is indeed a heaven-defying artifact. Qin Feiyong said, "Can you give it back to me now?"
Return it to you?
You can't be that naive.
Small Beast laughed mockingly.
Qin Feiyong's heart sank as he said, "State your conditions. As long as you return Xueqi to me, I'll do anything."
I'll do anything? It seems like this dagger is extraordinarily important to you.
In that case, I can't return it to you.
Small Beast teased.
Qin Feiyong clenched his fists, making cracking sounds.
How about this?
I can return it to you.
But you hurt my men. I can't just let it go. Make your move now.
Kill all the people behind you, and I'll give you the dagger.
Small Beast said.
Willow Tree and the others' eyes were suddenly filled with anger. Qin Feiyong turned his head and glanced at Willow Tree and the others. Then he looked back at Small Beast and said word by word, "Impossible."
Small Beast laughed.
"I knew you would say that. Since you can't bear to do it, let me do it for you."
Swish. Suddenly, the little golden beast's shadow disappeared. Qin Feiyong's face darkened.
He immediately waved his hand, and the castle floating next to Xueqi, and the inner demons broke through the air and disappeared between his eyebrows. He immediately sent Willow Tree and the others to the castle. Humph! Small Beast appeared behind Qin Feiyong and snorted discontentedly. A supreme power emerged. Willow Tree and the others who were sent to the castle were actually captured by it. Even White-Eyed Wolf, Lu Hong, and the others were also captured. How is this possible? Qin Feiyong's eyes trembled. Small Beast released its pressure and firmly imprisoned everyone in the void. It looked at Qin Feiyong and joked, "You think you'll be fine after sending them to the castle? You're so silly that it's cute. What do you want to do?" Qin Feiyong roared. "What do I want to do?" Small Beast chuckled, and its pressure rose crazily. White-Eyed Wolf, Lu Hong, and the others who were imprisoned in the void suddenly howled in pain. Qin Feiyong saw this and roared, "Let them go, I don't want Changshui anymore." "Sorry, it's too late." Small Beast smiled coldly, and a terrifying divine power emerged. In an instant, White-Eyed Wolf, Lu Hong, and the others were all shattered, turning into a bloody mist, rolling in the void. They didn't even scream. "No." Qin Feiyong suddenly gritted his teeth. Boom. His eyes and long hair were instantly blood-red. "Bastard, I'll kill you." He let out a hysterical roar, and his 3,000 incarnations, the Sovereign of 9 and 5, the Emperor of all spirits, all appeared and charged toward the little beast in a frenzy. "You dare to act rashly with your little strength?" Small Beast smiled disdainfully, raised its little paw, and pointed in the air. A golden divine light flashed across the sky like lightning, instantly shattering all the statues and incarnations, and entered Qin Feiyong's chest. His heart was shattered on the spot, and half of his chest was gone. Then, Qin Feiyong fell powerlessly into the desert below. Purple-gold dragon blood surged out, dyeing the surrounding yellow sand red. "Why? What did they do wrong?" "It's obviously you who are wrong. You created the cage called the Black Tortoise World. Is it wrong for them to resist? Why should you kill them? So cruel, you bastards. Aren't you afraid of being punished by the heavens?" Qin Feiyong climbed up in a sorry state, and glared at Small Beast, the fire dragon, and the giant python, and roared crazily. The fire dragon and the giant python's eyes were full of mockery. Small Beast was shrouded in golden light, and its expression couldn't be seen, but its words were filled with endless coldness. "There was once a world countless times bigger than a miracle, and I could swallow it in one gulp. Do you think I'm afraid of the so-called punishment of the heavens? Swallow a great world." Qin Feiyong's body and mind trembled. What kind of existence was this? "So be it, you hurt the fire dragon, and I killed your people, so we're even. As for this dagger, I like it very much, so I'll take it." Small Beast joked. The giant python hurriedly said, "Sir, what about the inner demons and the cedars? Aren't we going to get rid of them together?" The inner demons not far away suddenly had a look of surprise in their eyes. "Where it's possible to let people off, we should spare them, we can't kill them all. In short, we have to win people over with virtue, we can't use violence. Don't you agree?" Small Beast said. The giant python and the fire dragon looked at each other, speechless. They had already killed everyone around Qin Feiyong. How could they win people over with virtue? Shameless. But they didn't dare to say this out loud. "Boy, if you want to take revenge, come to the 3rd floor, I'll be waiting, but the prerequisite is that you have to have the strength to defeat me." Small Beast looked down at Qin Feiyong, said contemptuously, then waved its claws, and disappeared with the fire dragon and the giant python. "Ah!" Qin Feiyong roared to the sky, his blood-red eyes full of anger and killing intent. After a long time, he helplessly lowered his head and glanced at the empty void and desert. They were all dead. He was the only one left. He was like a helpless child, slowly lying on the yellow sand, crying bitterly. He had never been so desperate. Even when he was expelled from the imperial capital, it couldn't compare to the pain of losing his companions and friends at this moment. Sigh. Inner Demon sighed deeply, walked in front of Qin Feiyong, and said, "See, not everyone is as kind as you. In today's world, if you want to achieve great things, you have to be ruthless enough." Tens of thousands of cedar trees also flew in front of Qin Feiyong, shaking their withered branches and leaves, as if comforting Qin Feiyong. At the same time, they also released what little vitality they had left,
pouring into Qin Feiyong's body, repairing Qin Feiyong's heart. Qin Feiyong looked up at the cedar trees and inner demons, then lowered his head, like a stone statue, sitting on the ground, not saying a word. Swish. Soon. Zhuge Mingyang also appeared from the space divine item, looking at Qin Feiyong with a trace of sympathy in his eyes. But more than that, he was gloating. Boom. He released his divine thoughts, scanning the void, and said, Li Yun's space divine item is also gone. It seems that Ning'e Feng, Li Chong, and the others are also dead. Qin Feiyong said angrily, Isn't this what you want? Yes. This is what I want. Not only that, I'm going to kill you. Zhuge Mingyang's eyes flashed with killing intent. Swish. As soon as he said that, tens of thousands of cedar trees immediately moved, like an iron bucket, protecting Qin Feiyong. Seeing this, Zhuge Mingyang raised his eyebrows, looked at Qin Feiyong and said, It's hard not to be jealous of you. Haven't you heard of this saying? There are gains and losses. Although I am kind at the same time, it is easier for me to gain the trust of everyone, including these cedar trees. And you are cruel and merciless. Who is willing to believe you? Inner demons snorted coldly. Even so, what's the use? Aren't they all dead? Even your best partners, White-Eyed Wolf, Fatso, Lu Hong, and the others are all dead. Don't you think it's funny? Zhuge Mingyang joked. You? Inner demons glared at him. Qin Feiyong suddenly stood up, his eyes flashing with a touch of determination, and said, No, they won't die. Zhuge Mingyang was stunned, and said sarcastically, Are you stupid? Look at them yourself, they have all turned into blood mist, and the blood mist is still rolling in the air. But inner demons, hearing Qin Feiyong's words, suddenly trembled, and stared at Qin Feiyong in shock. Qin Feiyong looked at inner demons and said, Immediately collect the blood mist. I don't agree. Inner demons said angrily. Without them, what's the point of me living alone? If you don't agree, I will die in front of you. If I die, you won't be able to live either. Qin Feiyong shouted. Why are you so stupid? Inner demons roared angrily. Stupid people have stupid luck, don't you know? Qin Feiyong laughed. I really admire you. Inner demons stared at Qin Feiyong, waved his hand, and the blood mist rolling in the air suddenly turned into a waterfall, condensing in front of him. Following closely, Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and brought Xueqi, inner demons, and the blood mist into the castle. Idiot! Zhuge Mingyang sneered. In his opinion, Qin Feiyong must have been stimulated, and his brain must be damaged, otherwise why would he say such stupid words? Chapter 1656. Inside the castle. In the entire castle, other than the Iron Book, the Pill Scripture, the Nether Devil Flame, and Dan Wangcai's Pill Furnace, there was no one else. Originally, this place was so lively. Qin Feiyong sighed deeply and shouted, Ling Yunfei, come out! Previously, he only saw Fatso and the others, but did not see Ling Yunfei, Luo Qingzhu, the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, or Li Jian. So, Ling Yunfei and the others were definitely fine. But after a long while, Ling Yunfei still did not appear. Qin Feiyong took out the image crystal and sent a message to Ling Yunfei. Finally, Ling Yunfei's figure appeared and frowned. What are you doing? I'm currently comprehending the profound mysteries of becoming a god. Can you not disturb me if there's nothing else? Fatso and the others are all dead. Qin Feiyong said. Ling Yunfei was startled, he rolled his eyes and said, Don't joke around. Qin Feiyong said angrily, Who is in the mood to joke with you? Come out immediately and take me to your spatial divine object. Ling Yunfei was shocked, he suddenly stood up and said, Really? Qin Feiyong nodded. Damn it! Ling Yunfei cursed angrily. In the next moment, he brought the image crystal and appeared in the castle. Looking at the empty castle, his face immediately darkened. Then, he looked at Qin Feiyong and the inner demons, and asked, What's going on? Qin Feiyong said in a deep voice, Let's go in first. Ling Yunfei waved his hand and brought Qin Feiyong, the inner demons, Xueqi, and the blood mist to immediately appear above the medicine field. Luo Qingzhu, the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, had always been with Ling Yunfei, so she was also awakened by Qin Feiyong's voice. At this moment, seeing Qin Feiyong appear, the two of them immediately went up to greet him, their faces full of surprise. "Where is Li Jian?" Qin Feiyong asked. Ling Yunfei closed his eyes and sensed for a moment. Then he opened his eyes and looked at Qin Feiyong, saying, "He is cultivating on a mountain peak." "It's good that you're okay." Qin Feiyong breathed a sigh of relief. "Feiyong, what's going on? And your cultivation, I can't see through it. Have you already broken through to the semi-divinity realm?" The Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's young miss said as she looked at Qin Feiyong. "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded. "He really broke through?" The three of them looked at each other. Ling Yunfei said, "Wait, since you've already broken through, how did Fatso and the others die? Besides, there's also Chong Shui and the castle. Ask the inner demons." Qin Feiyong said as he scanned his surroundings. Not far away, he saw a large blue stone. Then, he brought the blood mist with him and walked towards the blue stone. Sigh. Looking at Qin Feiyong's back, the inner demon sighed deeply, turned his head to look at Ling Yunfei and the others, and began to tell them what had happened before. At the same time, Qin Feiyong sat cross-legged on the blue stone, looked at the blood mist floating in front of him, and muttered, "Don't worry, I definitely won't let you die." With that he closed his eyes. A moment later, the inner demons finally finished speaking. Ling Yunfei and the other two's faces were also filled with anger. They never would have thought that so many things would happen outside in such a short period of time. Even Chong Shui had been snatched away. The three of them turned their heads to look at Qin Feiyong, their eyes filled with unbearable pain. Not to mention Willow Tree and the others, people like White-Eyed Wolf, Fatso, and Lu Hong were all Qin Feiyong's most cherished companions, friends, and family. One could imagine how big of a blow it would be to him if they all died at once. Luo Qingzhu sighed. "Let's not disturb him, let him calm down by himself." The inner demon said, "He's not calming down, he's trying to save Fatso and the others." "What? Save Fatso and the others? Wait, aren't they dead? How?" Ling Yunfei was bewildered. The inner demons was about to speak when the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House sighed and said, "The fourth move of the Divine Dragon Technique can save everyone." How do you know?" The inner demons raised his eyebrows. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House did not say anything. She looked at Qin Feiyong with a trace of pity in her eyes. "The fourth move of the Divine Dragon Technique? What are you talking about?" Ling Yunfei and Luo Qingzhu looked at the two of them suspiciously. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House said, "Emperor Qin is kind-hearted and cares about the common people. Therefore, when he created the Divine Dragon Technique, he created a heaven-defying technique that can save the common people." "It's the fourth move?" Ling Yunfei asked. "Yes. The fourth move is called Gate of Rebirth. And the fourth move is divided into 4 realms. Initial, small success, major success, and perfection. Initial can save 1,000 people. Small success can save 10,000 people. Major success can save 1,000,000 people. Reaching the perfection stage can save billions of people. Feiyong should still be at the initial stage. Although it's initial stage, as long as there's a little bit of blood left in the dead, he can be saved. But at the same time, he will pay a heavy price." The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House said. "What price?" Ling Yunfei asked. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House said, "The fourth move is to sacrifice oneself in exchange for the rebirth of others. The price to pay for each realm is different. The price to pay for the initial stage is to lose one's cultivation." The inner demons added, "And it's a complete loss. No divine pill can save it." "What?" Ling Yunfei's body trembled. It turned out that this was the reason why Qin Feiyong had not used the fourth move. He hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyong and said angrily, "I won't allow you to do this." The inner demons waved his hand and said, "Forget it. I've already objected to it outside. It's useless." Luo Qingzhu also hurriedly advised, "Feiyong, you really have to think about it. This price is not something you can bear." "That's right. It wasn't easy for you to cultivate to this step. If you lose everything just because you save them, then wouldn't your previous efforts be in vain? Actually, we all know that to you, losing your cultivation is even more painful than death.
Because you have already tasted the feeling of losing your cultivation. Listen to our advice and don't do anything stupid. I believe that Fatso and the others will not allow you to do this if they know about it. The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House also tried her best to persuade him. However, Qin Feiyong did not seem to hear it and did not open his eyes. Ling Yunfei said angrily, "Stupid, stupid. I don't care. In any case, I'm just the inner demons. He's the main body. He can do whatever he wants." The inner demon said in a fit of anger. A moment later, Qin Feiyong finally opened his eyes and swept his gaze over them. The purple gold dragon aura suddenly burst out of his body. "Are you really going to do this?" Ling Yunfei said angrily. Qin Feiyong said, "I've already lost enough in this life, I can't lose everyone again. If the ones who died today were you guys, I would do the same." As soon as he finished, the purple gold dragon aura soared into the sky. Purple gold clouds quickly appeared in the entire sky of the spatial divine object. Sigh. The inner demons sighed and silently retreated to the side. Ling Yunfei and the other two looked at each other and silently retreated with a heart full of helplessness. Boom. Crack. Between the clouds, the sound of thunder gradually became louder and lightning roared. Roar. A purple gold divine dragon was faintly discernible in the clouds, emitting a great dragon's might. Soon, a second, third, and fourth purple gold divine dragon appeared. They would occasionally fly out from the clouds, revealing their huge bodies. Each of them was more than 10,000 feet long, covering the sky and the sun. About half an hour passed. A total of 99 purple gold divine dragons appeared in the sky. They danced in the clouds and hovered in the sky. Every dragon scale on their bodies emitted a dazzling purple gold divine light, and a mighty dragon's might enveloped the world. 99 purple gold divine dragons. What a spectacular scene. Such a scene was rare in one's life. Ling Yunfei and the others looked at the sky and were deeply shocked by this scene. Roar. Suddenly, the 99 purple gold divine dragons roared at the sky in unison. Then, they gathered together. The dragon heads faced the sky and the dragon heads faced the ground. From afar, they looked like pillars of divine metal, standing between heaven and earth and shining with purple gold divine light in all directions. With my will, I seize the creation of heaven and earth. With my body, I seize the origin of the world. Gate of rebirth appear. Qin Feiyong suddenly stood up and roared at the sky, his long hair fluttering in the wind. At this moment, he seemed to have transformed into a ruler who controlled heaven and earth, and a monstrous domineering aura was released from his body. Roar. The 99 purple gold divine dragons roared at the same time. Clang. In the next moment, accompanied by an earth-shattering sound, a huge stone door appeared above the heads of the 99 purple gold divine dragons. The stone door was 999 feet tall and was emitting a dazzling purple gold divine light. It was engraved with the earth, mountains, rivers, and all living things. Every pattern was as if it was a work of nature and was incomparably real. One could even see the ferocious beasts roaring inside and the humans struggling to survive inside. Just as the Gate of Rebirth appeared, Qin Feiyong's cultivation level dropped rapidly. Peak 9-star Combat Emperor Realm. 9-star Combat Emperor. 8-star Combat Emperor. 7-star Combat Emperor. 6-star Combat Emperor. However, Qin Feiyong didn't seem to feel anything. He looked at the Gate of Rebirth and muttered, "As long as I can exchange for everyone, so what if I lose my cultivation level?" He waved his hand and the blood mist floating in front of him suddenly turned into a waterfall and rushed into the sky and into the Gate of Rebirth. His cultivation level was still dropping. At the same time, in a certain place, there were medicinal herbs all over the ground. Both those he had seen and those he had never seen before were all here. They were all medicinal herbs that were tens of thousands of years old, hundreds of thousands of years old, and even millions of years old. The medicinal fragrance was rich and the light was overflowing. The heaven and earth were filled with essence that couldn't be dispersed. In the middle of the medicinal herb field, there was a divine tree that reached the sky. But the strange thing was, there was not even a single branch on the sacred tree. Green leaves grew on the trunk like precious jade, sparkling and translucent. At the peak of the divine tree, a beautiful woman sat cross-legged with a guqin on her lap. Her black hair was like a waterfall and she wore a snow-white dress. Her jade-like fingers kept plucking the strings of the guqin,
producing a beautiful and pleasant sound.
Beside her sat a young man. He was 7 feet tall and his body was thin. His long hair was as white as snow. Although he looked very young, the space between his brows was filled with a feeling of having experienced the vicissitudes of life.
In his hand, there was a wine pot.
He tasted the wine while looking at the woman.
When he heard the sound of the guqin, his handsome face was filled with love for the woman. Chapter 1657. But suddenly,
the white-haired young man seemed to have sensed something.
He raised his hand and pointed in the air. An image suddenly appeared in the void in front of him. In the image, 99 purple-gold divine dragons were holding a huge stone door. A terrifying dragon aura shrouded the world. Below, a young man in white stood on a piece of bluestone and stared at the stone door intently. That's right. This person was Qin Feiyang. The woman stopped playing the zither and looked at Qin Feiyang in the image. She smiled and said, "He's willing to sacrifice himself for a friend. He's still the same as in his previous life. He hasn't changed at all."
Yes. The white-haired young man nodded. But the woman frowned her beautiful brows again. But what? The white-haired young man looked at her in confusion.
Is it really okay for the little guy to do this? Isn't it afraid that Qin Feiyang will bear a grudge against it?
The woman said.
So what if he bears a grudge? With the little guy's current strength, Qin Feiyang won't be its opponent at all. The white-haired young man smiled. Even so, don't forget that Qin Feiyang isn't an ordinary person. He's his reincarnation. With his talent, it's only a matter of time before he catches up. I think it's best to let the little guy restrain himself and not go too far. Otherwise, you'll be implicated.
The woman said worriedly.
Implicate me?
The white-haired young man smiled and his brows were full of arrogance.
I'm serious.
The woman said angrily.
Yes. Madam is right. When I have time, I'll teach it a lesson. The white-haired young man quickly smiled apologetically. When you have time.
The woman was stunned and frowned.
I don't understand. Are you busy now? You've been playing all day.
Of course I'm busy.
Look, not only do I have to accompany you, but I also have to accompany my son and give birth to another girl. How can I find the time?
Madam, can you not care about these things?
Let the little guy handle it himself. Besides, you have to give up something to gain something. Qin Feiyang has lost a lot now, but maybe he will gain even more in the future. The young man in white said meaningfully. He stepped forward and hugged the woman tightly. He chuckled and said, "Let's hurry up and make a baby. Those old people above are urging us. If we don't work harder, I'm afraid we'll be scolded by them again." The woman blushed and said angrily, "It's broad daylight, what are you thinking about? You're my wife. What do you think I'm thinking?" The white-clothed young man chuckled and disappeared with the woman in his arms. The scene in the void also disappeared. Inside the spatial divine item, Qin Feiyang stood on top of the bluestone, gazing at the gate of reincarnation with eyes full of anticipation. By the side, the inner demons, Ling Yunfei, Luo Qingzhu, and the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's young Mississippi. Although they had objected at the start, what was done could not be undone. They could only look forward to everyone's rebirth. Time trickled by. Qin Feiyang's cultivation had already fallen to the martial ancestor realm. The gate of reincarnation emitted a vast aura. Finally, as it fell all the way, Qin Feiyang's cultivation finally disappeared completely. There was no aura on his body at all. The moment his cultivation disappeared, one figure after another flew out of the gate of reincarnation one after another. Qin Feiyang's face was filled with ecstasy. He saw the white-eyed wolf, Lu Hong, Fatso, Willow Tree, Yu Huang, Chui Li, Li Yun, Ning Mingi and so on. Looking at the familiar faces, his eyes could not help but blur. Although it had only been less than an hour since everyone had died, he felt that it had been as long as a few centuries. From the initial despair and pain to the current joy and excitement, he felt as if he was dreaming. Did it really work? Ling Yunfei and Luo Qingzhu were dumbfounded. However, after being reborn, everyone was naked. Everyone's skin was like that of a newborn baby. In the void above, Fatso and the others were confused. Where was this?
Hell.
They turned to look at the gate of reincarnation, their eyes full of doubts. Could this be the legendary hell?
Boom.
With the appearance of the last person, the gate of reincarnation collapsed. The 99 purple gold divine dragons also disappeared between heaven and earth. Fatso retracted his gaze and scanned the surroundings. He said suspiciously, "Brother Wolf, this place looks a little familiar."
"It does look a little familiar."
The white-eyed wolf nodded. Lu Zhang suddenly said, "Wait, isn't this Ling Yunfei's space divine item?"
"Yes, it really is."
"What's going on? Aren't we already dead? Why are we in his space divine item?" The winged snow eagle, the pangolin, the black dragon snake, Dan Wangkai, the viper, and the spirit queen were all stunned. Hey, shouldn't you put on your clothes first and then discuss slowly?" Listening to the discussion of the group of people, Ling Yunfei was speechless and shouted loudly.
"This is little Ling's voice."
Wolf King was pleasantly surprised. The group of people lowered their heads and looked down. When they saw Qin Feiyong and the others, their faces were full of joy.
"Wait, put on clothes?"
Immediately after, everyone was slightly stunned and looked at themselves. One by one, their faces were full of embarrassment. They hurriedly activated the power of the false god and battle chi to cover their bodies. It was only now that they noticed that they were not wearing any clothes. The first thing they did was to look for the Cosmos bag to get their clothes. However, they found that they could not find the Cosmos bag. Luo Qingzhu asked, "Fei Yang, did their Cosmos bag not reborn?" "The gate of reincarnation can only let them be reborn." Qin Feiyong shook his head. Luo Qingzhu frowned and said, "Then didn't we lose a lot?" Qin Feiyong nodded. All his artifacts, herbs and wealth were with Lu Hong and Dan Wangkai. In other words, these things were all gone. But it didn't matter to him. These were all worldly possessions, as long as he was still alive.
Alas!
Ling Yunfei let out a long sigh. He looked at Luo Qingzhu and said, "Take out all our spare clothes." Luo Qingzhu nodded. The two of them took out some men's and women's clothes from their Cosmos bags and sent them to Fatso and the others. Everyone hurriedly put them on. "We beasts are more comfortable. We don't need to wear clothes wherever we go." The white-eyed wolf smiled and rushed to Qin Feiyong like lightning. He asked suspiciously, "Little Qin Zi, what the hell is going on? Are we alive or dead now?" The white-eyed wolf, Lu Hong, and the others, after putting on their clothes, also landed around Qin Feiyong one after another, looking confused. They clearly remembered the moment when they were killed by the small beast. By right, it was impossible to survive with their bodies smashed. But now, Qin Feiyong and the others in front of them were so real. Could it be Qin Feiyong and the others were also killed by the small beast? Qin Feiyong said with a smile, "Pinch your face hard, and you will know whether you are alive or dead now." Everyone raised their arms and pinched their faces hard.
Pain.
At that moment, they were stunned. Then, they were overjoyed. Pain meant that they were still alive. "What are you happy about? Didn't you see that I lost my cultivation in order to save you?" The inner demon said angrily. "Lost your cultivation?" Everyone was shocked and quickly looked at Qin Feiyong. Sure enough, Qin Feiyong was now an ordinary person. The willow tree asked, "Young master, can you recover your cultivation?" Qin Feiyong shook his head and said with a smile, "I have to cultivate again."
"What?
Cultivate again?" Everyone's eyes trembled. Didn't this mean that all his cultivation was gone? "Boss, why do you have to do this? Do you know how much you have sacrificed in order to cultivate to this point? How long have you worked hard? If I had a choice, I would never let you lose your cultivation in order to save me." Fatso shouted. The inner demons glanced at Fatso, then looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "See, I told you that they would not agree with what you did." "I don't regret it," Qin Feiyong said with a smile. This simple sentence touched the heartstrings of everyone present. The white-eyed wolf said suspiciously, "Little Qin Zi, how did you save us? Do you still remember the fourth move of the divine dragon technique?" Qin Feiyong said.
"Yes."
The white-eyed wolf nodded and said, "I remember that you have never used this move before."
"Yes."
"Because this move is not used to kill people, but to save people. Of course you have to pay a high price," Qin Feiyong said with a smile.
Ling Yunfei said, I have a question that I have always wanted to ask.
What is it?
Qin Feiyong turned to look at him. If you use the fourth move now, you will lose your cultivation as the price. In the future, when you cultivate the fourth move to the perfect realm and save billions of people, what will be the price?
Ling Yunfei asked.
Life.
Qin Feiyong said.
Ling Yunfei was immediately petrified. Wasn't this price a little too high? The willow tree looked at Ling Yunfei, then at Qin Feiyong and asked, Young master, is there no other way to save them?
Qin Feiyong shook his head. Why are you so stupid?
Do you think we are worth it? The willow tree suddenly said angrily. Qin Feiyong said with a smile, Of course you are, because you are all my friends and partners. Friends. Partners. Hearing this, the white-eyed wolf, Fatso, and the others were fine because they had long regarded Qin Feiyong as their family. But the willow tree, Yu Huang, Li Yun, and Ning Mingyi all had an indescribable feeling in their hearts. How were they supposed to repay this kindness?
Plop. Suddenly,
the willow tree knelt on one knee on the ground and said, Young master, I, willow tree, swear to the heavens that no matter where you go in the future, I will follow you and never leave you.
Qin Feiyong was stunned.
And this emperor? In the past, I was with you because of your potential pill, but now, this emperor is interested in your character and character. Your cultivation is gone, right? Don't be afraid. Let this emperor open the way for you in the future.
Yu Huang also looked at Qin Feiyong with a firm gaze.
Li Yun looked at Yu Huang and Willow Tree, her eyes flickering.
Suddenly,
he smiled in relief, turned to look at the fake gods of the palace of Fengtian, and said, From now on, the palace of Fengtian is disbanded. In the future, you will not be loyal to me, but Qin Feiyong. He is our only young master.
Disbanded?
The people of the palace of Fengtian suddenly became restless. Ning Mingyi also looked at Li Yun in surprise. This is an order. Moreover, don't you think it's a very lucky thing to meet such a loyal and righteous young master?
Li Yun laughed. Finished. He turned to look at Ning Mingyi.
The two of them looked at each other and smiled. They also knelt on one knee and said respectfully, Young master's benevolence and righteousness have made us sincerely convinced. We are also willing to follow young master to the death and never betray you. We swear to follow you to the death and never betray you. Seeing this, the others took a deep breath and also knelt on the ground and shouted.
Ah!
Qin Feiyong was stunned. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.